Hi, Chenault. How are you?
I'm here. Thank you.
Is anyone talking? Can I hear you? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. All right, thank you.
Hello, Bo.
Yeah, hi, Chenault. How are you?
Okay. Winter time. I have a sweatshirt standing by.
Carter, is that your virtual background or are you always in the board office?
Not my virtual background. It would be a much better picture if it was.
We almost threw that out about 10 years ago when the board office was redone. But my suggestion was not listened to.
Yeah, I do have an attachment to it.
Well, now we all do because we have
And
no.
it might fit on another wall, but probably, I haven't actually measured it, but where it is would be a better place to mount the large monitor for the video system as opposed to where the whiteboard was.
Right.
Oh well.
No chance it'll fit. No chance. That's why it's where it is. I've actually looked at it.
I meant, Anita, on the other wall above the file cabinets. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I see, but then
Would fit.
nobody can stare at it.
That's right.
But I guess the video screen is, you could put it on the video screen. We'll feel comfortable, like an electronic fireplace. Okay. Are we ready?
There we go. Thank
Valerie,
you.
Valerie, are you in order?
Yeah, I'm always in order.
Okay.
Getting
Okay.
started.
We usually wait just a few minutes. We do have a quorum already, so we'll just.
I'll just check and make sure the first presenters are here.
Oh, well, that's important.
I see Jeremy's here, and I believe he's the first presenter for going in the order with 235 West 11th. So just let me know when you want to get started, and I'll move him over.
Okay.
Chenault, did you address the question in the chat from Michael Hiller about video feed already?
I didn't see it.
If you could just, I think
Michael, can Michael speak? It would be easier at the moment.
So the question is, I think we just need to let people know how members of the public should expect to be on camera, off camera, or adjust with the voice promotion to be able to talk.
Their cameras. I believe members of the public are only speaking, not being seen. Is that correct?
Yes.
I don't understand the question. Yeah. Okay, we'll wait until 35. Okay. The landmarks committee meeting of Community Board 2. And I'll just make a few comments before we start. if anyone is here concerning 15 West 13th Street, there will be no hearing on that this evening. And we have a brief presentation for Greenwich Street, which is fourth on the agenda. And it's quite brief, and we'll put it in between any two if it comes along first. It would normally have been first, as we always try to do, the simplest to the most complicated in order. For those who are unfamiliar with the procedure, we begin with the presentation by the applicant without interruption, except that I may clarify things from time to time for the notes. After that, we'll have comments and questions from the committee members, comments and questions from the public. And at the end of the testimony for the 4 applications, we will draft our resolutions, which is without comment from the applicant or the public, but they're welcome to stay and listen. If the applicant is here from time to time, it's not frequent, but we might ask questions. The board meeting for this evening's resolutions is on November 19th, and the commission calendar can be consulted for the public hearing at the Landmarks Commission. Anything heard by the board, the committee for the board, is says that it's going to be at a public hearing for Landmarks, and one can give testimony there. We will now begin with 235 West 11th Street. Oh, one more thing I wanted to say. I've been having interruption in the speed of the bandwidth, and if my sound has a problem, that will let me know, and I'll turn my camera off. Thank you. 235 West 11th. The application is to add a rear addition to cellar basement, first, second, and third floors, setback terrace on the second floor, reconfigure the rear portion of the existing fourth floor, casement window replacement, first floor window sills lower to the floor level, new elevator and interior stair, front and rear yard landscaping. I would just ask the applicant to be very clear in some sort of order through these various aspects of the application. Okay, when they're ready, Valerie.
Great. I'm going to promote Jeremy Sharing to a panelist.
And Jeremy, you'll be able to share your screen.
Okay, great. Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Hi there.
Hey, are you going to give me a screen sharing option?
You should have it now.
Don't seem to have it yet.
You should be able to do it now. It's selected.
Hang on. If it doesn't come up quick, is anyone able to put our drawings on the screen for me?
That sounds like a no.
Okay.
Sorry.
right.
It should be enabled. All panelists are able to share now.
Yeah, hang on.
Please, everyone, be sure to mute your microphone so we don't have interruptions inadvertently.
Okay, I'm getting a new join. It's asking me for a meeting ID. Not sure why. Sorry, I'm just trying to log in again on the computer. Not getting much luck there.
Are you logged in under multiple logins?
Yes, I'm okay. There's the drawing. Who brought that up?
That was me, Mustafa.
Great. Okay.
If you can't, you want me to just present this?
If I can just say next, that
Okay.
would work for both of us. Thank you. Sorry about
No
this.
problem. If you want me to zoom in at any time, let me know.
Okay. All right. So let's get
One
going.
more thing, please. Joe, reference the page number. We have at least one member on the telephone. The presentation.
Okay. All right.
And,
So we're looking at A100, which is the first floor and cellar levels. So on these plans, 11th Street is on the right and the rear yard is on the left. We are proposing to extend the cellar, which is the lower of the two drawings at the rear. And then we are extending the rear of the first floor, which is where the cursor is right now. And then re-landscaping the rear yard. On the front, we are maintaining the existing front yard. We will slightly widen the steps down to the front entrance, and we'll slightly widen the front entrance. In the center of the plan, you can see plan north, the elevator, and plan south, the stairs. Next, please. Okay, so the upper plan, sorry, let's talk about the lower plan. This is drawing 101. The rear, we have the living room, which is, again, extended like the basement level. And in the front, we have the dining area. And again, in the center of the plan, the stairs and the elevator. And then the upper plan is the second floor, which is in the rear, the master bedroom, which has a setback and terrace, which is over the first floor living room. And at the front, we have the master bathroom. Next, please. Okay, looking at drawing A102, the lower of the plans is the third floor plan. On the front, no change. All casement windows will be replaced in kind. Center of the plan, again, the elevator and the stairs. And then the rear is, there's a slight extension to the rear on the third floor. And that's the rear bedroom. If we look at the next plan up, okay, this is the existing fourth floor, which was added in the 1920s, we believe, per landmarks and historic documentation. So this will be a bedroom, and then at the rear, there'll be a terrace. And so it's pretty much per the existing envelope. It gets changed slightly because of the location of the elevator and the stair. And then at the far, okay, so that partial plan is then the roof of the fourth floor. At the rear terrace level, we'll maintain or renovate the existing skylight. So the glass band that you can see plan center, on the top floor is the skylight. There's an existing skylight there now, and our intent is to build a new skylight in its place. Next, please. Okay, so drawing 301. On the right is 11th Street and the front yard. And at the left is the rear yard. And this drawing, obviously you can see the extension to the cellar level below grade, and then the extension to the basement and first floors, the setback at third floor, which is maintained. Sorry?
Excuse me, while we're on this drawing, could you indicate exactly where the excavation is in connection with this extension?
So if we go to the cellar level, please, and then if we go plan drawing left, you'll see the excavation. Keep going left at the cellar level. Yes, exactly. That's the below grade.
And how deep into the garden is that?
Hang on. If we go back to the, hang on.
That's not correct, by the way. It has to, oh, there you go. Okay, sorry, you got it.
Are we good? So we're going to extend. We have another 24 feet to the rear yard from the inside face of that wall. So take another foot off that. So 23 feet to the rear yard property line.
So the depth of the extension from the house to the
At cellar
limit.
level is 20 feet.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
That's the extent to the extension to the existing masonry. That is not the extension to the existing wood framed addition that's on the rear of the building now.
That's fine.
As I was saying, okay, so the setback levels, second and third, and then if we just scroll down, you'll see the further setback. Scroll down. No, let's get the top floor. Yes, and then we got the setback at fourth floor level behind the skylight. The skylight is that diagonal line that you can see above third floor.
You don't have an existing section or as part of this package, an existing sort of conditions plan or section or elevation, do you?
If we go, I have the elevations, yes. I don't have the existing section in this package, but I can, and we have one. I mean, I can certainly
I mean, if you want to bring it onto your screen and maybe share that, that might be a good idea, because I think that's kind of what we often sort of look at the building sort of section and like existing and proposed, and gives us a better idea of what exactly you're proposing and what exactly is there and the magnitude of these changes.
Okay.
Just helps us. But you know what? If you want to keep going, and then maybe we can come back to that if the rest of the group wants to, by all means.
Okay, let's do that version. So next drawing. Okay, so here you can see the existing rear elevation, and on the right, the proposed rear elevation, and in the middle, a photo of the rear elevation. So on the left, probably the photograph's easier to understand. So at the basement level, you can see the basement is being built out. The feeling is that the original addition is the first floor T porch, and that at some time they built out underneath that, and then they actually built on top of the T porch as well at the second floor level. And then you see third floor and then the skylight above that. So if we go on the drawing to the right, we've reinterpreted the spacing of the bays of the T porch on the basement and first floor levels. And then we have the setback at second floor, and we've maintained the window openings on the second floor in the same way. And then the third floor is 3 openings, which reflects the neighboring townhouses, which similarly have 3 openings on the third floor. Presently, our house has been changed over and has a sort of 2 windows and a central door, but we're reverting back to the more traditional 3 penetration third floor. Behind the skylight, you can see in the drawing is the penthouse, or the 4th floor level, which is set back behind the skylight. So you don't really see it from the rear yard. Next drawing. So the street, obviously on the left, the existing conditions photograph, in the middle, the existing condition elevation, and on the right is the proposed elevation. So first of all, we are proposing to completely renovate the existing stucco. Unfortunately, the condition of the stucco is such that we will have to remove it and then put on a new stucco. And our plan is, rather than to do this very rough textured stucco, to actually do a very smooth face stucco. On the right-hand elevation, you can see the front door in the left corner is slightly widened if we compare that to the drawing in the middle. The existing front door. That's one change, and then the other change we're making is that the window sills on the first floor are going to be dropped to floor level, which is actually the way the house was originally designed, and presently the raised windows were changed over probably in the 20s when they made this building, changed this building over to a multifamily. Next. Next drawing.
You're also adding sconces and
yes.
sort of some texture to this. Like
yes, we're framing. Yes, we're framing the entrance.
You're muted. Oh.
You can hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay, we're trying not to change much at all on the street front. We did want to make the entrance a little grander because it's going to be a single family home rather than at the moment, which it's a multifamily. And then similarly, reverting back to the first floor fenestration, which was full height originally. Here we have renderings of drawing 210. There's a rendering on the right of the front facade and the left, the rear facade.
May I put two questions about the front before we move on from it? Do we have a more of a sample of the stucco color, or are we to rely on the rendering?
This is what we have right now, but we'll be doing tests, obviously, to review with landmarks.
I'm sorry, repeat that, please.
I said we don't have samples in this presentation, but we will be doing test samples to present to landmarks in the future.
But the rendering is a fair representation
exactly.
for us.
Yes.
Okay, and the doors, are the doors being removed? I think you historic in any case.
Yes, we'll be replacing the door as it's being widened.
But the present door is not the original door, certainly.
Correct.
Okay.
I think generally.
But of course not, because the stoop was removed, certainly.
Yes,
okay.
exactly.
I just need to note that. Thank you. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so the basement and first floor, the intention is to use a metal cladding, and then to continue the stucco further up the facade on the second and third floors, which we hope distinguishes the second and the first floor and basement levels, as they are today, in a way, distinguished from the masonry section of the rear facade. We're keeping the existing street railing and gateway, and then obviously landscaping the front yard and the rear yard. Those are all the drawings we have to show today.
I have a question.
Wait, are we finished the presentation?
That's it. Yes.
Okay, Anita.
Yes. Hi there. I have a couple of questions. One is, I agree with Mustafa. We really are not given as much information as I think we would like. There's no existing plans, no existing section, no demo plan. You know, we like to know what you're taking out.
Okay.
Secondly, I think the information, for example, around the new widened entrance, and also you're recessing the areaway, I see. Excavating the areaway, is that correct?
Correct. Yes. Just in
Right.
front. If we go back to the section. Other way, front. Yeah. Yes. So there's a recess in front of the front basement windows.
There's a recess. You mean it's high up?
No. As you were
down?
saying, it's cut away from the front.
It's excavated. You're excavating and you're building a new slab of some kind, right?
There'll be bluestone.
And then you're adding some bluestone. Well, you're dropping the level. I mean, that's what you're showing.
Yes.
Okay, I think that would be good to articulate because you're changing it. I'm not opposed to it, but you are changing the relationship of the areaway to the sidewalk and the street and how people perceive it.
Yeah.
So I think that would be good to be very clear about.
Maybe we can look at the floor plan. Yeah, if we zoom in. Okay, so the area that's remaining at the level it is today is the planted area on the left. The steps go down and the line of the lower step becomes the setback.
Got it. Good. And then finally, for example, the door enframement on the front facade and the information, like detail sections, what's the profile like? Is it going to look like Disneyland or is it going to look like something authentic? Because that can go either way.
Yeah. Okay.
I need it in drawings. I mean, I believe you, but I don't really want to believe you. I want you to show me because I think these are the things that make or break, a good project. I don't know. Also, the light fixtures. So, again, we're interested in that kind of thing.
Understood.
Just describe it as best you can, please.
Yeah, the plan is to make. Sorry, was that to me or?
No, I'm just saying.
I couldn't hear.
Okay, go ahead. Describe the surround. Sorry.
Yes, so the plan is to just make a very subtle raised border around the door opening, and then over the top of it, a very subtle, pronounced lintel over the door opening.
Okay, not too subtle. That's exactly my problem right there. So anyway, I think you should articulate that for sure. Whatever that is, whether it's whatever inches it is. I mean, you don't want it to look too flimsy either. Otherwise, it's going to look like a shadow, a ghost of some kind or something. And finally, and then I'll be done. Is I like the massing of the rear and all that. Did you consider having the red brick above, maybe on the top two floors?
Yes.
Just because. might make it.
Here's the answer to that, I think, is that the side facade, this townhouse has a side facade because of the side yard next door, and so the stucco is going from that entire side facade and then wrapping around on the second and third floor. So making it in brick would have sort of continued the finish of the neighboring townhouses, but in a way, this house was altered a lot in the 20s, and that's something Landmarks has really told us to focus in on, because it is slightly unique to the row.
Are there other,
That makes perfect sense. I'm good.
are
Yeah.
there
In other
other,
words, you got a whole side facade to stucco.
Yes.
are there other members of the committee who have questions or comments?
Yeah, just one other thing. Were you able to find some historic photos at all to sort of help
We
you
have
contextualize?
we have the tax photo. That's as much as we got, and then we got some Sanborns from the 1800s, but that information just confirms what we know, which is that it's a wood structure on the rear and a masonry structure in the front. The tax photo is the most historic we have, which is pretty much exactly what we see today.
Okay, good.
So I have a question
Yeah, Brian,
regarding
is that
the
Brian?
rear facade. It does seem that much of the rear facade had been altered in the past, as you described, tea house and so forth. And then you are making the effort to restore the tripartite windows on the third floor, which I appreciate and I commend. However, I'm not quite sure why you're taking on the second and first and even the basement floors and not using the tripartite theme on those levels. You could get just as much glazing, but instead of dividing it into quarters, you could use the tripartite, the three segments. Even though they are larger portions, they would still follow the theme of dividing that rear facade into thirds. Have you considered that?
Yes, we looked at doing thirds and quarters. The reason we're leaning to the 4-pane is really, yes, could we look at that rear rendering again? The reason we're working with 4 is really because of the influence of the T-porch bay system, which was 4 windows.
Yeah, but that's not original to the building.
Well, it's interesting. Landmarks is very, very fond of T-porch extensions, and they're it's actually very historically significant for them, and we worked with them on trying to find an expression that sort of developed from the existing T-porch that's there now. And I agree that the 3 opening is a traditional masonry solution in townhouse architecture, no question.
Are there other members of the committee who have questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question regarding the ironwork in the front. Can you just confirm that it's totally a restoration, that it's not a replacement in kind of any sort, but that it's entirely a restoration? Because the photograph and the rendering look slightly different, but I can't quite tell.
No, the intent is to restore.
Okay, thank you.
Have all the committee have the?
Yeah, just one other thing. You said on the first floor, you're lowering the windows, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I have one comment of my own, which is the rear facade along the lines of Brian. I understand about the using the tea house idea below. It's the question is the 1, 2, what's now the third floor, the next to the top floor, that might be considered in 3 French windows, which look very nice. It's just that's where the interruption comes, or the change, and there's sort of a third interruption by the 4 there. That's it. Thank you. Are there members of the board who would like to ask questions? Are there members of the public who would like to ask questions? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the next application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Valerie, if you'll be organizing people.
Yep.
244 West 10th Street. The application is to construct a penthouse addition above the existing 3rd floor, including FDNY access to on the front and occupiable terrace at the rear, relocate mechanical equipment, and add an interior communicating stair.
I just promoted Tyler Kane, who will be presenting on this.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Excellent, very good.
Fine, thank you.
Let me see if I can share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you very much, all committee members, for letting us come and present our project here today at 224 West 10th Street. Our project in question is including a new penthouse addition on top of the existing sloped roof plane over the 3rd floor of a single-family townhouse. It would include the removal of some existing rooftop skylights, the relocation of 2 mechanical exhaust vents. We would be adding a new HVAC unit on the rear portion of the building, which would be serving the new space that we're creating in this penthouse addition. And then we would be adding a maintenance platform with guardrail and FDNY access gate at the front elevation, none of which should be visible from the street. To give a little bit of background, our site is here on West 10th Street, nestled in the middle of the Greenwich Village Historic District. We are on the south side of West 10th, so we are between Bleecker Street and Hudson to the west, and then the adjacent streets would be Charles Street to the north and Christopher Street to the south. A little bit of background on our site. Our building was constructed originally in 1848 along with its neighboring sister townhouse. At the time, they were twins and built by the same developer. In 1926, there was a renovation that changed the front facade condition, removing the stoop, removing the front entry door, and turning it into a multifamily building. In 1969, this was included in the Greenwich Village Historic District. And then in 2010, there was a new renovation that included the front elevation of the building that restored it to its original detailing. And it used our neighbor 226 as the precedent to replicate, and that we restored the stoop, restored the front door, replaced all of the windows in kind, and that is where it has left today. Maybe some people on this committee were part of that review of that restoration. So this is an—
I was going to say a couple of years ago that happened, so
Sure.
I remember it well.
So this is where that renovation ended up. This is an existing elevation. You can see 226 on the right. Neighboring building to the left, which is slightly taller, but we have a exposed red brick facade, new windows that were replaced in 2010, completed in 2012, and a brownstone garden level with stoop that was renovated as well. This is a single sloping roof, so it slopes away from the front. What you're seeing in elevation is the high point of the roof in the rear. This is the existing rear elevation. It is all white painted brick. And there was some minor modifications done, including window replacement in 2010. The upper 2 floors, this is actually 1 floor on the 3rd floor. The 2nd floor, these window openings are original to the existing house or the original house. These manipulated openings were done as part of the 2010 renovation, including the addition of this steel rear porch area. To show you what you can see from the street, basically, a lot of the visibility comes from West 10th Street, mostly from the north side of the street. We do have an incidental view between a gap of 2 buildings on Christopher Street. It's about 8 to 10 feet wide and is a car kind of rear driveway access. So there is some incidental visibility to the rear elevation. And both of these things were things that we tried to take into account when designing this new penthouse addition proposal. This is an existing section cut through our site and the site behind us. So on the left, you have West 10th Street, and you can see the view exposure from that sidewalk up to our roof. You see the single sloping roof of our building sloping up to the south. Our rear yard, and then this adjacent rear yard, which has this driveway access and that incidental view from the north side of Christopher Street. These are some photos of what is currently there now. So you can see, starting from Bleecker Street, our townhouse kind of reveals itself moving as we move westward. This is the existing townhouse. This is the existing cornice line. You can see our neighbor again on 226. As we continue westward, the visibility begins to be shielded somewhat with street trees, and then eventually is eclipsed by the taller building that we have to the west. And then there's no visibility once you reach Hudson Street. The incidental view that I was speaking of, this is the view between those 2 buildings on Christopher Street. So you can just make out our white brick with black trim and black cornice. If I stuck the camera kind of through this security gate, this is what you can see again of our rear elevation behind that tree. That is our site. Just to talk through briefly, I'm not going to go through all of them. I think that there are numerous precedents throughout the district that have a rooftop massing structure, something discrete that could take the form of either a bulkhead, a stair bulkhead, a penthouse addition. Some of these were historic pre-landmarks designation, and some of them have been added over time. I think, the basic point is that this language of having a discrete setback massing is something that has limited visibility from the street, is something that is characteristic of buildings of our scale and size, 3 or 5 stories, and making it relatively appropriate. I'll focus on just a couple very quickly. This is an example of 114 West 11th Street, where we can see a portion of a penthouse addition from a side view where a relatively considerable portion is visible from the street. One that I think is most applicable to us was actually a relatively recent renovation of 138 West 11th. And you can see that they have a very slim line of material that's seen from the street that goes atop the existing historic cornice. I pulled out from the permit description that the modifications to an expansion of the rooftop addition will not eliminate any significant architectural features of the building, and that the visibility of the addition over the front facade will be limited. I think this, in many ways, mirrors our goals for this project. Even the language and composition of this building is very similar to ours. Red natural brick, dark windows, dark black cornice, aside from the fact that this is a double wide townhouse and ours is a single. This was something that we used as a roadmap to try to emulate in our penthouse proposal. This last one is just something I wanted to include. This is actually directly 1 street up from us on Christopher Street. And what you're looking at here is a penthouse massing that is seen through an incidental view on West 10th. So if you were standing at our front door, this is what you would look at. Whereas this in the lower right is viewing from Christopher Street and seeing, some reasonable, but again, a relatively discrete massing with simple articulation. I use this as an example because this has a patented standing seam copper material cladding, and that is the standing seam metal, I think, is what we thought was an appropriate cladding for this setback penthouse addition in this bulkhead language that would be appropriate to our district and site. Throughout the district, these were just more examples of either newer buildings with visible bulkheads adding, older metal ateliers, or stair bulkheads, all of which are part of the language of the district overall. So I'd like to walk you through the massing of our specific penthouse addition and both the building and code parameters that we were working within to try to minimize visibility from the street and still create a kind of code compliant and occupiable space. This is an existing roof plan of what is there right now. So again, West 10th Street is on the left side. The rear yard is on the right side. We have 2 skylights that would be removed. We have 2 exhaust fans that would be relocated and an access hatch that would also be removed. This is the line of the existing cornice, the rear cornice on this side. This again is the existing site section. What we are proposing to add is this penthouse addition. So this would be the extents of what we are adding and how that relates to the views from their respective streets, front and rear. Our goal being to minimize the view from the main elevation of the building on West 10th Street. So if we zoom in on that upper floor, this is the existing 3rd floor of the building. You can see the existing roof, the existing cornice. This is the view angle taken from the center of the sidewalk on the north side of West 10th Street. This is the view angle taken from Christopher Street. We have an existing stair that spirals up with an opening that is common to the archetype, and an existing roof that was also part of the 2010 renovation. So this roof and its structure are relatively new. We're trying to keep as much of it as possible. So where we started was, in order to provide roof access, there was a certain amount of vertical climb that we had to achieve. And even if we used the steepest stair that code would allow, we still had a certain amount of steps that we needed to accommodate. And given the rise, we also needed to accommodate a landing. We started that stair right at the existing opening, stair opening that goes through the lower floors of the townhouse. That stair opening is something that we would want to align to remain or maintain the integrity of the kind of volumetrics on the inside of the house. So we wanted to make sure that the inside of the north face of our new addition was not compromising or coming over that stair opening. There's also a minimum code required head height for stairs, and that's 6'8". So that added another meaningful parameter of what we had to accommodate to merely get from our 3rd floor to our new penthouse level. So in the end, that was paired with 2 complementary parameters. One being how thin that we could possibly make floor structure from a structural perspective. And then on the opposite side, the minimum code required ceiling height that we needed for an occupiable space, which is 7'6". Those things together ended up placing the height of this lower floor and placing the height of the wall of the north side of the penthouse addition. From there, like the existing roof, we were sloping this roof back so it would not really affect the view from West 10th Street. But these were the things that got us to a final point of what we are proposing, bringing this stair up to a landing that goes across the entire space, east to west. This would provide access to a small terrace on the south side of the building with a new railing. On the front side, this is that maintenance platform along with a maintenance guardrail that is outside and below the view of the street from the opposite side of West 10th Street. And then once again, maintaining these critical heights in order to make the space usable and ultimately compliant. What that left us with was about 1'8" of visibility going across that material across the front from east to west on this addition. To show you a plan of what is being proposed, this is the proposed stair that comes up, as I mentioned, to a continuous landing that is at the same level as the terrace. We have an opening that allows this wall to open and provide access to this terrace level. The railing is also set back slightly from the edge of this cornice, and you'll see that the rear elevation is set back quite a ways from the cornice line itself. These are the steps back down to this occupiable room. The whole thing is basically one room, and this is a stair opening that emulates the stair opening that goes through the rest of the townhouse. On the north side, we have what could really be called a maintenance window, and that's really to service these mechanical units, and we kept that window low enough, it's not really a door, so that you don't see the window from the street. You will only see kind of unimpeded continuous material across the street instead. This is the guardrail, FDNY access, and steps back down to the roof level. So once again, this is where we're starting. This is the existing front elevation. And this is what we're proposing. So you can see that the material choice is a patinated zinc in a staggered standing seam configuration. We have that maintenance access window and a black and steel finish, and then the guardrail that is part of that maintenance platform and stepping back down to the FDNY access rail here. Naturally, what you're seeing in elevation appears taller than what you would perceive from the street because you're seeing the roof slope away from you to the high point on the south side of the building. So here again, we have the top of the existing cornice on the front, top of the rear cornice, the top of our new penthouse on the back side, and then the neighboring parapet to the east of the building. Similarly, this is our existing rear elevation, and what we are proposing to add is actually to mirror on this elevation only the white painted brick in the small amount of material and surface area that we have. Doing a detail of that patinated zinc that comes across the top as a flashing cap, integrating with the roof membrane, and then actually copying the language and even the same fabricator of these opening door systems in black and steel that was part of the 2010 renovation to the first floor and the garden level. We're adding a small HVAC unit on this side, which would be shielded and screened in a hardwood, some kind of durable hardwood in the back. And then the railing that is being installed would also emulate the railing, a very simple vertical profile that was installed as part of the 2010 renovation. So we've constructed a mock-up of this. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to see it. We did take a series of street views that walk around. I will note that we originally installed the mock-up, and then when we were there on site, we realized that we had a few inches to capitalize on to completely align the backside of the wall with the existing stair. We also worked with our structural engineer to slim down the construction of that north wall to a higher gauge, smaller stud that was allow us to capture another 2 inches. So we actually rebuilt the front wall of the mock-up and moved it back. And I think it probably took 2 or 3 inches of visibility off of the front. So if we start on Bleecker Street, there is no visibility that you can see above our townhouse. From here, you can see in this red outline here, that is just the beginning, the corner of our new penthouse addition. I think like the other precedents that I pointed to, when you see it on the corner and the building is stepping back, you see a slightly larger dimension of exposure, but then it slims out the more that you travel westward into just a material band that goes across the top. So looking across the street, we see that band of material that comes across. Again, that would only be the vertical patinated standing seam zinc. So you really wouldn't see anything else. You wouldn't see the guardrail, you wouldn't see the door or the maintenance window. It's just that slim line that goes across the top, and that continues as we move westward in that slim band across the top. When we begin to get farther and closer to Bleecker, again, we get some tree cover that begins to shield some of this view, but you can still see that sliver of exposure on the front before we get completely eclipsed by the neighbor to 226 on that 4-story exposure. And then lastly, if we were looking at that view from Christopher Street and that incidental gap, you're seeing right here the outline of the rear addition, as well as the extension of the rear chimney to accommodate 3 feet above that height of the new peak of the rear addition roof. Just to go over the materiality, really the vast majority of what we would be ending up with is already there. And so the front facade, the existing brick, the existing painted black windows, painted black trim and window lintel detail, and all the existing brownstone at the garden entry, that all remains. What we are adding is that patinated zinc setback from the street on the front and western face of our new penthouse addition. And the door/window system would be in a black and steel finish. On the rear elevation, the existing white brick is exactly what we would be matching on top of our new penthouse addition. The existing doors on the garden and first floor level would be exactly the same, again, even the exact same manufacturer as what was installed in 2010. And then we would just have some tropical hardwood that was being added for durability's sake as a screening material around our HVAC unit. That's the entirety of the presentation. And so please allow me to answer any questions that.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have two. The color that we're seeing in the small visibility in the front,
yes,
is dark gray. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, it's a natural patinated zinc. So yeah, it would be a gray. This material right here.
Yeah, and the black at the back, the back other than the stucco that we see is only the windows.
Correct. So the back is only
the doors.
It would be white painted brick, thin brick on the back, and then the windows. That would be it.
Okay, so the outline of the windows is in black.
Yes.
We see black and white. Okay, that's it. Are there other members of the committee who have questions?
Yeah, Chenault, Bo.
Bo?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, you use the term patinated zinc. I really don't know what that is.
So zinc weathers over time and it gets duller. When zinc is first manufactured, it's actually relatively shiny. So you can get zinc pre-patinated, which means they've weatherized it. So you don't have to go through kind of like the same, you don't have to, copper is very shiny, but then it oxidizes over time. So we can get it, we can kind of jump ahead and leapfrog the weathering process so that it's already duller and less obtrusive from the beginning.
And then will it continue to change in color, or is it stable?
It should be relatively stable because they have accelerated that color change up front.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anita, you're trying to raise your hand.
Yes, I just didn't want to be rude. My hand raising doesn't work digitally. So, thank you for the presentation. I just had a couple of concerns, and perhaps you can give me your thinking on this. Sure. The drawing showing the proposed north elevation, which is of the front facade, the zinc addition. And I understand that the beauty of the material, weathered and whatever, may not be coming through, but I do find the overall composition and appearance to be, number one, atypical with this, mechanical access step down, stair, and just the overall appearance is kind of, is not appealing to me. So I don't know why it has to be so back of house. It is the front facade, and yes, you can't see it from every place else, but we're looking at it now, and all your neighbors will be too. So.
Sure, I think that again, most of this is not going to be seen. All that is going to be visible from the street is just this band of material up top. And so,
I know that. I heard you.
sure. Okay.
But I'm just saying, we don't have step downs on the front facade of a building like this. That's a very unusual, and your neighbors, I mean, yes, but we are a lot of neighbors here. We're going to be looking at it. So I just think it's an odd approach, and maybe there was something that you could do to get rid of this little
Sorry, you cut out a bit there.
exterior mechanical stair, and B, maybe, you know, I don't know, it just doesn't look very. Oh, I said, it bothers me that you have a stair going to what has always been the front facade, even though you're treating it as the back. So anyway, take it for what it's worth, but I don't think, I think you could cheer it up a little.
Okay.
Okay,
It's
are there other
very
members of the
somber.
committee who have questions?
Well, I have one question.
Yeah.
And that is,
That's all.
we're so close to not seeing that lip of the roof on the penthouse. And I understand you've got minimum interior space, but would it be so bad to just bevel that corner so that the sight line is not visible?
I think the issue was that in the end, if we would be pushing the usable space on the inside back, because our 7'6" height would then be, let's say we cut it at a 45-degree angle or something like that, we would be pushing that usable space farther into what is, I think, relatively small of a room on the inside. So that is why we tried to minimize and respond to some of those inferior conditions, but opted to kind of keep that wall vertical on its massing.
I also wonder if your neighbor Brooke Shields has made any comments about this. Is she been informed?
No, I actually didn't know that Brooke Shields was our neighbor.
Yeah, in that 226.
Really?
Okay, are there other questions from the committee? Are there questions from any members of the board? Are there questions from members of the public? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
As beginning of, we would put Greenwich Street in when it is able, and the applicant is ready now. Mustafa, if you could stand by with the drawings, the applicant may not be able to share them. And
I'd be happy to.
And Valerie, if you can put the applicant on, I will explain how we're doing it and we'll move on.
So she isn't signed in yet. I texted her, but she has not signed in. So she has the link and everything, but she's not.
Okay, we'll move on then. And if you would just.
I'll just keep an eye out for her and we'll just let her
do it
Yep.
As soon as we can.
Mm-hmm.
The application, which is number 3 on your list, is to construct a 3-story rooftop addition with elevator bulkhead, restore the existing Broadway façade-remove, and replace non-historic parts of the storefront infill, install a new cornice, remove and replace the non-historic windows, clean and repair the facade.
Chanel, I don't want to interrupt Ben, let you go any further, but the applicant for Greenwich 822 Greenwich Street is here now.
Okay, if we could see that, please.
Sure.
It's a very simple and I'm sure not lengthy one. And if Mustafa is standing by, when you can put her through, I'll explain that.
Leslie? We'll just need you unmute. It'll be *6 on your phone.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Hi, yes. We have thank you. We have one of the committees standing by to show the presentation. If you can identify, they're so simple. I believe what we want to see is the existing condition of the detail and the proposed condition.
Okay.
Put him through. Thank you.
Okay.
When you're ready.
Do I go?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. So I'm reading my notes. Sir, can you? There. Okay, so that's just the title card. This is the first slide is showing the location of the building, which is the yellow dot on the left side. It's in the very far west side of the West Village, where it meets the meatpacking district. It's a very diverse area, architecturally speaking. The next slide is just an up-close view. That's just where the building is on the block. And it's from the Landmarks website. And it just talks about how it was built in 1957 for the Canvas meatpacking company. So not much. Third slide, this is what the building originally was. Just in case you wanted to see the original exterior of it. As you can see, it's just an industrial meatpacking plant. Next slide. In 1980, they converted it to co-ops, and this was the architectural rendering for that. And in yellow, I circled, there's this decorative accent that the architect put on. In fact, at the time, the architect called it a conversation piece, which we think is quite funny because it is quite a conversation piece, actually. It serves no purpose. It has no tie to the original building or the original decor, or the original look of the building. If you go to the next slide, you'll see it up close. This to answer your question. So in the lower picture, can you see the circles? In the lower picture, you can see up close as a framed stucco piece jutting out from the brick over the green door with just a decorative thing coming out of the building with a circular window. That's what we're trying to take off. Well, rather not take off, but what I'd like to do is, next slide, please. Keep the frame, take out the stucco, take out the window, and replace it with just a solid piece of etched safety glass. And if you can see in the lower left corner, we would have the building's address, 822, prominently displayed, unetched. So nice, clean, industrial look. And this is a look that one of our neighbors, 829 Greenwich Street, they have this similar thing. So we thought, oh, that looks nice. You know, it would be a better way for us to display our building's address. It fits more in line with the industrial look. And we think it would be a nice upgrade.
Okay, is that the end of your presentation?
Pretty much. This is a picture.
Sorry, I didn't see there were the slide.
I forgot I had this slide. This is a picture, and do you see the window on the top right? There's it's etched glass with 829 and the offset in the lower left corner. That's just an example of two buildings down, someone that did something similar to. So that's the end of my presentation, unless you have more questions for me.
Are there questions from the members of the committee?
Well, I would like to note that when I went by there a couple days ago, it's very hard to find the address.
Yes.
And I also, I've been in the building several times. It's not a very inviting entrance because of the step and so forth, not handicap accessible. I know that's not part of your scope. I'm not criticizing that as far as your presentation, but that little porthole kind of window has always struck me as being out of place. And so I find this to be a very refreshing approach to this alteration. And it's very minor too. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, by the way,
any
maybe I
problem?
should, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm in a car, so it's like, I hear the navigation system going off at the same time. I should note that our building was broken into a couple times in the last year, and there's been some vandalism. So I'm the person, I'm doing a whole renovation project, which Landmarks approved everything. Just this one piece, they were like, this is unusual, and this is why I'm going to the community board. This is, why it's happening. But like the doors are being replaced with solid doors, and they're matching green. Like everything is going to be, if you can see in the rendering, you'll see like everything is going to be really more homogeneous and clean and neat. Right now the
Okay.
doors are like from the 80s. They're made of plywood, they're not even solid wood, and they're unstained, and there's the brass. It's a hodgepodge of different things going on there. So while we were doing all these changes, we wanted to make the building address more prominent, like you mentioned, and it will look nice and neat all together.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions from the committee? From members of the board, other than the committee members, from the public? Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, Donna has a question.
Oh.
I don't really have a question, and I'm not sure the significance of the porthole, but I walk by, I live around the corner from there, and that porthole actually is kind of distinguishing. So to me, having this huge square with a small number on it, I don't understand why the number can't just go below the porthole so you can see where the location is without having this big blank square there if there's no significance to the square on the porthole.
I'm sorry.
I think that's just a comment, right?
The porthole.
I guess it was a comment and a question. Is there any
okay.
significance to the porthole?
No, it was an added purely decorative accent that was put on in the 80s. The original building had nothing to do with it whatsoever. It's purely decorative. It's like having a picture frame standing on your table. It's not attached to anything. It's just, we would just as well take it down altogether, but it might leave a mark where the brick is. So we thought, let's just take out the stucco on the inside and replace it with a piece of glass. The size of the numbers, if you guys have suggestions in terms of how large you want the building address to be or something, I mean, that's fine. For perspective, it's a 40 by 40 inch frame. So the interior dimension is about maybe 35 by 35. And we were thinking about doing numbers that looked like, about 8 inches high,
Okay,
clearly
we
visible
understand.
from the street.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from anyone? Okay, thank you very much. Our first from a car. Thank you.
I just want to have a quick comment. I can see why it's there, by the way.
Anita, you're off. Anita, may I suggest you sign off and sign back in?
I didn't know you were moving on to the next project.
Yeah, and we can discuss them when we make the resolutions. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
827, 831 Broadway, I have read, and so when it's possible to put the applicant on, and I have a few things to say about it before. We have consulted with Landmarks about how to treat this, and they agree that we appropriately look at it as a new application without regard to the prior presentation of the rooftop addition. So we will look at it in that way. So we won't consider what was replaced from the original. I'll note that in the presentation that we have, the most recent one, there are no photographs concerning visibility, which is a concern. So that should be addressed when we get to visibility. And the committee is in an interesting situation with this in that it involves a structure built on both a landmark building and a non-landmark building. And the commission cannot consider properly structures built on top of a landmark building. We can say anything that is appropriate from our point of view or from the input from the public that we incorporate usually into the resolutions. And that can be a comment on the way in which it affects the landmark building. With that, could we have the presentation, please?
Chanel, before we get started, there's a question from Michael Hiller in the comments asking on whether or not members of the public are permitted to offer their opinions on pending projects, or are they just limited to asking questions of the applicant?
They can offer an opinion of the project. Yes, very much so. I'll say more about the public input when we get to it, but certainly questions as well as evaluations are generally much more what the public does.
Perfect. I just want to get your on that. And so I've added Jordan Regrove on here. Is there anyone else, Jordan, that needs to join you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Jordan. Again, we'd like to not have the presentation interrupted, except when I'm having trouble with the notes, and then there'll be time for everyone to ask questions and make comments after. Thank you. Go ahead.
Great.
Jordan, you understand about how we're considering it as something new, so that all the prior application is not applicable as far as we're concerned.
Absolutely, okay. Absolutely. And I'll give a brief preamble about the conditions of why we're coming back here today as well.
Yes, please.
To the question of do we have any other presenters here? We do have Elise Wagner, the land use attorney from Kramer Levin for this project, who's present. She's not going to present. However, if any questions come up about legal issues or zoning or whatnot, she's available for questions. So if there's a way to add her as a panelist.
I'll add her as a panelist. And then what about Lester or Shane?
Lester and Shane also, they might jump in to assist with dimensions and some other information on the project. But other than that, that's the team. So I can get started. I know time is of the essence, and you've already seen this once. So so hang on.
And we know the history of it.
And you know the history, exactly right. Okay. Now, if you could just confirm that you can see my screen, we can get started.
Yeah, we can see it.
You can
I'm
see
sorry,
it.
there's one more thing I need to point out, that this is a revised presentation. And if you're looking at it on your own screen at home with your own copy, be sure you're using the one that I sent out late this afternoon. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for hearing us tonight. And as I mentioned, we did present this project to you previously in November of 2017. And following that presentation, We presented it January of 2018 at Landmarks and then returned, and it were actually approved in May of 2018. So tonight, despite that approval, we're back presenting to you as a result of Ray versus New York City, a lawsuit in which Landmarks, a judge ruled that we should have given the change to our initial design, should have returned to the CB2, returned to present to you, given that change, rather than proceeding to the Landmarks Preservation Commission. There was no finding of arbitrary or capricious ruling on Landmarks' part, and no issue with the approval. It was a procedural matter, and so we're going back through the presentation right now. Our client decided rather than fight this ruling, and Landmarks does not agree with the ruling, but rather than fight the ruling, the most expeditious manner would be to just simply come back and present. And so what we're going to present tonight is something different than what we showed you before. So I think it's, I think what you said is absolutely correct. Treat this as a new presentation in essence, because a lot of the comments that we received when we presented to you were actually considered in the revisions, and you'll see that in the design tonight. So what we have up on the screen is 827 and 831 Broadway. It's actually two separate lots, a single facade along Broadway, right across from the Strand bookstore. It was built in 1867, designed by Griffith Thomas, very noteworthy architect, and it had not initially been declared an individual landmark until it was actually slated for demolition. And that designation happened the week before we visited you in 2017, so at the end of October of 2017. And the designation was made in large part because of the cultural importance of what happened inside this building. And if you recall, this was really an epicenter of the abstract expressionist painters. A number of them, including Paul Jenkins, Willem de Kooning, and then later Larry Poons, occupied, both lived and practiced in this building. And so that was kind of at the heart of the designation. And so just to explain a little bit about the site, as I mentioned, it's two separate lots. Can you see my cursor? I hope you can see it.
We can, yes.
We can see it.
Great. So there's an L-shaped lot on the south portion, which extends, has a finger or tail that extends down to East 12th Street. And what we're going to discuss tonight is that whole portion is not part of the designation. So one of the solutions to the bulk issue that you identified when I presented before you previously was kind of too much mass visible. The big move was really shifting that mass onto the non-landmark site over here, which we'll get into in a moment. Here are some historic images, tax photos, 1940 and 1980, and you could see that the storefront infill was changed kind of generationally, and kind of noteworthy is this period serving as the antique market to the stars. That they started to make, the tenant there started to make some little additions to the design in adding these great Juliet balconies and some of the storefront items and some of the storefront elements rather. And those, a number of those we have elected to keep in the design. So here's the current state or pre-pandemic non-mask wearing people out front. So some shots of what the building looks like today. Here's an elevation montage, a photo montage, to give you a sense of how the building is situated between a number of other larger scale buildings. And to that point, we just wanted to share these images of much larger buildings than what we're proposing in the immediate kind of one block vicinity. Massing a design. We hope to go before Landmarks next month, and they asked us to put together this list of kind of issues that were identified with the initial design and how we address them in the return. And I think the big one that Landmarks made, and it's the same one that CB2 made, was about the mass invisibility of the addition that we initially proposed. So what you'll see today is that we reduce that massing, and we'll get into the design of that momentarily. Here we have zoning site plans. On the left, we have the initial proposal, which was our proposal to do 4 additional stories on top of the building that extended to East 12th, and then had setbacks both off Broadway and East 12th. The setback, or I'm sorry, the 4-story addition was about 50 feet tall, and the base building was 65 feet. And I think one of your comments at the time was that the proportional relationship of 50 feet to 65 feet wasn't quite right. And so that again was addressed with what you see here on the right-hand side, where we dropped the addition to just 3 stories on top of the 4-story building. We increased the setback an additional 8 feet to 36 feet. And the overall height of the building has been dropped by, I think it's just under 14 feet. So it reduced the visibility and kind of falls into that category of minimally visible rather than what we presented previously. This axon helps illustrate that a little bit more, that you see the 4-story addition that was a part of the initial proposal in 2017, and then where we landed with the Landmarks Preservation Commission in May with the 3 stories, and shifting all of that area into the non-landmarked portion. And so actually I want to go back here really quickly, because this is the basis of the judge's ruling. If you see that the addition on the non-landmarked portion of the building, it actually projects about 5 feet at the maximum point beyond the landmarks designated site. If we were able to just chamfer that corner, then there's no issue. However, for all practical construction purposes, it makes a lot more sense to do this. And that was the basis of the judge's ruling, that change is something that should have come before you. This is a rendering of the point of maximum visibility, which is on East 13th Street of the rooftop addition. And you can see the non-landmark portion has grown. This is now an 11-story building. It's all completely as of right. And again, off the landmarks portion, except for this corner right here. And you'll see a design, we'll get into this. The design has changed considerably as well for the portion that is visible. And I'll show you visibility studies. I think you mentioned that there aren't visibility studies in here, but there are towards the end. And I'll take you through it. It shows that it's not visible from most vantage points. So comparatively, this was the design that we presented initially with you, again, in November of 2017, just to give you a comparison of the massing shift there. And just to give you a brief, I know I talked about this extensively in 2017, but really I think the most fascinating part, and again, the basis of the designation was the fact that this building served as an epicenter to these extraordinary artists. And it was really the center of the abstract expressionist movement. Geographically, it existed between Union Square and Washington Square, and this was right in the center, and multiple members of this movement practiced within the confines of this building. And so one of the things that we identified right away is that this bit of vital history to the city's history is completely unknown to most passersby. And so we saw this addition as an opportunity to pay homage to these artists architecturally and raise awareness as to the importance of what happened inside this building. And so as we studied these artists and tried to kind of define that relationship of their artwork and how we can effectively and appropriately respond to that architecturally, we focused in on this incredible kind of gestural and dynamic qualities to their artwork. It was really just about emotion, about movement, and this dynamic incompleteness in a lot of their artwork. And we also focused on ingenuity and innovation. And that was kind of at the heart of this, rethinking this entire art form. And to us, the innovation is like a very New York story. So it all really resonated. And so we focused on Willem de Kooning, who's one of the protagonists, that while he was inside this building, he made a leap from the urban landscape paintings that he was performing, which were widely renowned. And he kind of moved to the next phase of his career and moved into rural landscape painting. And so that moment where the artist has kind of created a whole nother direction and reinvented himself, and that happening in the building was something we really focused in on. And so one of the paintings he did while there was Excavation. And this is really a painting about New York City. He used to walk around the city and imagine all of the spaces inside buildings. And while this painting looks utterly chaotic and crazy, it's actually highly ordered. And that order seemed to work architecturally. And so we drew a lot from this painting. And so I want to now enter, can you guys still hear me okay? I'm not seeing any of you on video.
We hear you loud and clear.
Excellent, great, excellent. All right, so what I have here are some renderings. And before you is a rendering of the addition directly across the street up against the Strand bookstore, so the other side of Broadway. And this illustrates that obviously it's not visible from most vantage points along Broadway, in stark contrast to what we presented to you in November of 2017. This is the area of greatest visibility along Broadway. And so this is right before Union Square. And with the additional setback and the reduced building height, we believe it kind of disassociates that massing or addition from the base building to a point where it looks almost like appurtenances and other kind of incidental equipment up on the roof. And then that by comparison of what we presented previously. And this is a rendering of on top of the setback above the existing building on the 4th floor with our 3-story addition. And you see that the envelope is composed of slumped glass. And one of the concerns that Landmarks had was that the relationship of what we were proposing did not have a strong enough relationship to the existing building. And so we took this same idea of reflection and distortion and applied it to a composition that is very much influenced by the Griffith Thomas building down below. It's like all about the depth of facade, some of the ornament or coin expression that's happening down below, but we're doing this all in glass. And then that glass is still reflective and it's still kind of changing colors through the day and kind of distorting the world around it, which was kind of the basis of the original design. But this Landmarks felt was much more in line with celebrating the building and the artists in equal measure. The other thing I want to say about this rendering is that the landscaping up here was kind of an important part of the overall concept, in that we borrowed from the flora of East Hampton, where de Kooning ultimately ended his career or finished his career after leaving the city, and you know, a lot of these plants are the landscapes that he did later. So trying to connect that way and also provide a basis of color, because he created such vibrant, colorful paintings while in this building. Here's the previous design, and then kind of night.
I'm sorry, I need to interrupt for just a moment.
Sure.
It is not appropriate to use the chat now, please. We try to reproduce as closely as possible these meetings with a regular live meeting, and we would certainly not entertain comments from the floor during the presentation. There'll be time after the presentation and after the committee questions for the public to comment and ask questions. Thank you.
Great. So I'm almost done here. So those are night renderings, and then here's some kind of detail elevation renderings of the slumped glass approach. This is actually a highly innovative way of glass manufacturing. And so we work with manufacturer in Europe and have created these 9-foot by 12-foot panels of glass that are slumped over to create kind of, again, the same hierarchy and a facade composition as you see on the base building. So here are the visibility studies. And if you can see, there's a key on the side. And so the two renderings that we showed on the streetscape were really the areas of greatest visibility. And that is this rendering number 2, which is up close to Union Square, looking southward. And then around the corner on East 13th Street here, which was the other rendering that we showed, where you can see the top part of the top floor being visible, but from all other vantage points, it is not visible. And then this is the comparative visibility study with the previous scheme, where we were actually celebrating its visibility, and the building again was much taller and not set back as far. The last component of this, which I think that CB2 was in full support of, with just the exception of the storefront on the north part of the building, was the overall restoration, bringing the finish of the marble back to its original state, cleaning that all up, repairing it, maintaining the south portion of the storefronts that were altered by the antique tenant, the antique dealer tenant. But then on the northern portion, we had opted to kind of restore back to the original state of the cast iron, and with infills that were really in line with what was there during the period, or what we deemed the period of significance, which would be the late 50s and early 60s. So we like that eclecticism, that kind of different periods of history recorded, being that this building's had so many lives, that seems to be a part of what we're celebrating. And then the last component is this plaque down here. We want to work with the Willem de Kooning Foundation to create an interactive plaque, which with iPhones, you'd be able to kind of learn about the artists that practiced in there, and learn a little bit more about de Kooning and Poons and all of the artists that made this such a special place. So with that, there's some final details on the storefront, but that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I have
Jordan.
just a couple questions before we go along. I want to be clear about. Oh, we just had the slide up. I'll go through in order. I don't know that we need the slides even for most of these.
Okay.
You showed contemporary structures as examples. Am I correct that none of those of the modern era was approved by landmarks? Those are just examples of what those structures look like in a
you mean
area of older.
In these renderings, or do you mean when I presented previously?
Of other buildings with
the larger buildings around. Yeah, this isn't a landmark district. This is an individual.
I understand
landmark.
that. Yeah.
Yep.
But that was just examples of other buildings. Okay.
Exactly.
This is for the notes now. There's no discuss. I want to be clear that I say what is correct.
Sure.
The visibility. That's a good. So, is this the only picture visibility I may have missed?
Yeah. No, that's fine. It's not visible from all but 2 vantage points. One of them is just south of 14th Street on the east side of Broadway, just as you're approaching the movie theater. And what you see here is the top story kind of poking out or peeking out from behind the corner buildings there at East 13th and Broadway. So this is the most visible that the building is, or the addition is, on all of Broadway. Now, let me just flip to the other rendering here. This is the area of greatest visibility, and this is east on East 13th Street, past Broadway, just east of Broadway. And so there's a stretch of about, I think it's about 25 feet or so, where you're going to be able to see the penthouse there. But from all other vantage points, or I'm sorry, not penthouse, the top floor of the addition. But from all other vantage points, it's not visible.
Finally, the if you go back to the rendering of the facade, the details of the storefronts.
Of the
Toward the very end,
Okay.
right before the details, sure. I believe.
Okay, right here.
Yeah, fine. The restoration, is that all cast iron, all the part that's being restored? What is there any other material in that? The windows, obviously, but the structure of the building, is that all cast iron?
So the structure of the building, the existing building, for the most part, we're keeping the facades, and that
the material.
Oh yeah, no, this is cast iron. Yes, cast iron.
Everything's cast iron.
Yes,
okay,
cast iron
and I wanted to be sure.
Yep.
And there is no change apart from, it looks like, paint to the south storefront.
Correct. No, it's a restoration of all the original material. Everything that's there. We're not taking anything away.
Okay. And we understand about the north. Do you have that picture of the existing condition of the north?
I don't.
Perhaps most of I can get it up. I think it's important for us to see it. If we can you enlarge the proposed north storefront? Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I can. That's
yeah. Can you just enlarge that so we can focus on the proposed north storefront?
Sure.
Okay, there's the proposed, and if we could see the slide which shows the existing north storefront.
If you give me a second, I can spare Mustafa the trouble. Let me see if I can just.
Okay.
I think we had this.
It was
right here, right?
There we go. Yeah.
There it is. There we go. So it's not rendered. It's not rendered, but
I know. But when we see the design of it, and it does look similar to the other one, just in a different configuration.
Exactly right. I think what was difficult about this side is that there's a lot of opacity. There's solid doors on either side and very limited glazing, which makes it very difficult for a retail application. Should retail ever come back, the amount of transparency is kind of vital to the success of the space. That plus the fact that this infill, I think, came in the late 80s. The one on the south was done much earlier, I think at some point in the late 60s, early 70s, something like that in the 70s with the antique dealership. So, but this is much later, and again, a little problematic for retail use, just to explain our logic or rationale.
Oh, that's all good to know. The south in the 70s and the north in the 80s.
Yeah, north, I think.
And the north has
when we were presentation there, this
the north has
wasn't there in the
windows,
80s tax photo. So yeah, exactly.
I believe that just one quick thing. Yeah, that's fine for my notes. Now, could we have questions from the committee?
Hello. I do have a question about
a number.
The storefront.
Okay, Brian.
Cast iron storefront. And I'm curious that you switch the tonality from the 827 was switched from a very light color rendition to a very dark color rendition. But on 831, you did the opposite. You went from a very dark rendition to a very light rendition. And I'm wondering why you're reversing like that, and what's the purpose of that kind of choice for color?
Oh, and the infill, making the infill dark. And so it's our best understanding, and all we have are illustrations to substantiate this, is that this limestone color of both the marble, above, and then the cast iron below, it was all made to look like stone originally. And so we're trying to bring that back, that the structure and that the body of the building is all of that tonality. And then the infill pieces are expressed a little darker. So it's really just kind of going back to the images or illustrations that we had of the building's early years.
Are you saying that that an illustration of earlier infill was the darker color?
Yeah, yeah, but
Okay.
more importantly, was that everything was expressed as stone, right? There was this period where everything cast iron was actually painted to make it look like it was marble. And so we were trying to bring that element back, knowing that this is cast iron down below, as are the columns and the cornices.
Okay. Brian, do you have other things?
I was also wondering if your historic research could provide some illumination about, I'm so surprised that the storefront was cast iron and not continued all the way up. It seems like on the upper floors is contrary to what most of the commercial establishments did in that period.
100%. And so this period we refer to as the awkward teenage years of cast iron architecture. It was like 1 foot in the marble facade, and then just the bases, just the storefront or lowest level was done in cast iron. And then obviously the next step was kind of all cast iron throughout, with the Bogardist structures. So, I mean, we're talking within just, a few years of this.
Okay, another committee member would like to ask a question. I would like to, for clarity, please, to go back to the roof, the plan from above that shows the intrusion onto the landmark structure.
You got it. Right here.
We're getting inspirational. Okay. Just to be clear, for those who haven't studied in detail, it said that 5 feet is the maximum distance in at the point.
Yeah, to be precise, it's 5'5" at its absolute deepest, 5'5".
And the about the square footage of it, I know it's hard to compute.
42 or 43 square feet
of intrusion.
It's 47.
47. Thank you, Lester.
47 square feet of intrusion.
Yeah. Per floor.
And how high is that structure?
Lester, Shane, do you want to give the exact dimension? It's 11 stories, so it's 100.
It's a 7-story. If you go to the axonometric.
If I could just say how high it is above the roof and above the above the existing roof and above the and total.
So it's 48 feet above the new
84 and a half. Yeah.
And then Lester, do you have the tally for it's
84 and a half is
84 and a half.
above.
Got it.
Sorry, I missed with 2 at what? 40, 45 above.
Well, it's 48 feet above. Yeah.
48 above the addition, and then another 36 and a half above that. So a total of 84.6 in total.
84.6 is the end result above the original.
Correct. Correct.
I have no more questions. The committee is finished.
No, I have one more comment
Okay.
or question about the second floor Broadway windows at I think that's on 827. the very, well, the mullions and the divisions on the second floor windows used to match what
Yeah.
was next door.
Right.
And I'm wondering why you're not preserving those. I mean, why not continue the match? It would look much better.
Yeah, again, it's the same situation that I think everything that happened over there happened later, 80s, 90s. And the idea was to kind of restore a majority of the fenestration back to the original kind of double hung and group double hung arrangement. As you can see, it's much different right now. And then that we would keep the windows in those select areas, again, vestigial recording of history, but restore the rest of the building back to what we were deeming the period of significance, which is when the painters occupied the building.
Chanel, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I got off
Better
my.
now.
Oh, good, good. Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
Specifically on the storefront. It bothers me. I think the thinness of the wood doors. They almost look like metal. They're treated like metal design. These are wood doors, correct? Wooden glass
Correct.
doors.
Yep. Exactly.
So I mean, must be like super duper incredible wood.
No, I think it might be the scale. It's like pretty sizable. Excuse me. It's pretty sizable bulkhead or base to that. So it's not not too thin of a profile. But they are big doors.
I could imagine it a little heftier. I understand the transparency need, but it just doesn't feel like it's expressing its material. And also I'm surprised by that little sliver of a transom above the door.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just make the door taller. I mean, you got so much glass, and then you got
Yeah.
another piece of glass, and then two more pieces of glass.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. The people that don't agree with me are the guys who make the doors.
Well, maybe if you made them heavier,
yeah,
if you gave more wood to the door, we've got an L over R ratio here.
Got
Like
it.
how high can you make them with how little material? Put some more material, and tall doors is so grand and
Sure.
and typical of this kind of building.
Sure. Yeah, point well taken.
Okay. Is that all for the committee? My comment is Anita's about the transom, the tiny transom above the door, and the looking overall, not just at the storefronts. The two show windows are disturbingly plate glass against the entire rest of the facade, where all the windows are broken up in one manner or another.
Right. I think,
thank you.
If I could respond briefly, if that's okay. We try to take our cues for this storefront composition again from what the limited information we had of what this building looked like in the 1950s and
I'll understand that.
Period. That was all plate glass. And
Mine is an aesthetic,
so,
what the whole thing ends up looking like.
Got
it's
it.
Such a wonderful restoration of the cast iron and the upper floors with the dispute about the second floor. Okay, thank you. Valerie, if you would organize members of the public.
Yeah, let's
in
go
some
ahead.
Order.
Sure.
I want to just say a few things before the public begins. We appreciate as brief as you can be, and there's a 2-minute limit per person. If there are groups, we would like for you to consolidate into 1 or 2 speakers speaking for the group, and the speaker could say how many are being represented. I said before that the commission cannot consider anything it can consider the intrusion onto the corner that we discussed in some detail about the landmark portion.
Could you repeat that, Chanel? Because you cut out at the first part of that.
Oh, I'm sorry. That the commission cannot address the 12th and what is built atop it. It can address and the corner that intrudes onto the what's now the roof and the roof of the extension of the landmark building. We can, however, express a view, though it's not a landmark to be considered question, about the impact of that structure on the landmark building from the visibility point of view.
I have a question as a board member.
If there, just a moment, there's a written testimony can be sent in to CB2 calling attention to landmarks November 2020, and we'll take any letters or documents or just written testimony that you have. The landmarks will consider this at some later meeting, and I don't believe it's been scheduled yet. It may be tentatively scheduled, but it's not been published. And there will be a board meeting of CB2 on Thursday evening, at which time the resolutions of the committee will be considered. And the procedure is that those are adopted or modified by the full board and sent along. One more thing, there has been question in the public about landmarking of the 12th Street building. That is again something that will not be considered at this coming meeting of the Landmarks Commission. Okay, Michael, yes, please now.
Yes, thank you, Shinod. I have a very quick question, something I thought I heard earlier, and that this project is completely as of right, is that correct? And or are there any other actions of any other city agencies that might come before this board at a later time for approval?
I can't speak for the board, I can only speak for Landmarks.
May I ask the applicant, I know that the applicant attorney is here, will there be any other applications of any kind that come before this community board?
No, this is completely as of right. And we actually, in addition to the landmarks approval that we already had, we have DOB approval, which we've maintained. So we'd be ready to start building should we be successful with landmarks next month.
Thank you.
Okay.
Valerie, if you would just recognize members of the public.
I will, just 1 second. We still have, so really quickly, I know Sarah has her, Sarah Appen has her hand raised, but in the meantime, while Sarah speaks, if you're a member of the public in the attendee list and you'd like to speak about this application, please raise your hand and you'll be called in the order that your hand is raised.
Okay, Sarah is the first
non-committed
person to speak. Okay.
Hi, Valerie, may I share my screen real quick? It's only gonna be one shot that I wanna just share very quickly.
Yeah, you have permission as a panelist.
Okay, it says you cannot share, but okay.
Oh, I don't, it's.
It might.
I don't know if you, I don't know. You should have a green button at the bottom that says all panelists can share, so.
Okay.
Sorry, we need the applicant to take their screen off so you can share.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll switch it back on, sure.
Thank you so much.
You got
Okay,
it.
excellent. So I just wanted to share one screen quickly, not my Zoom screen. So I'm Sarah B. Natman. I'm from Village Preservation, and I just wanted to clarify and also ask and also talk about this application a bit. So this is the application from 2018, which shows the landmarked portion of the property, which for the tower addition that's going on in the rear does fall into the landmarked portion of the property at the corner. So I wanted to point that out. And I assume that this is still the same application that we saw in 2018. Is that correct?
It's what was presented at the community board was the earlier version. So I was flipping back.
I beg your pardon. I'm not talking about the earlier portion. I'm talking about the one that was presented in May 2018 that was approved.
Oh, that was approved. The approved. Yeah. Yes, this is still the same. Yes.
Yeah. So, so a little portion of the non-landmarked property falls into this proposal, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So we maintained that we originally asked that, and I know Chanel just brought this up, but that 47 West 12th Street should have been landmarked as part of the 1866 build that was done then. And we also feel that the addition that was proposed, which again was approved, but we still feel that it was not, it's not appropriate for the 1866 building. So we maintain that position. We also want to point out that the 7-story addition is going on a slightly a part of the building that is landmarked, that falls into that landmarked area. And we just want all that considered when the committee looks at this application, which again was approved by LPC in 2018 and was, from what we understand, the judge had an issue with the fact that, God, can you hear the puppy in the background? This is so embarrassing. Stop. That this should not have been approved in back in 2018, and we ask that the committee look at that as far as this 1866 building. So thank you.
If you could unshare your screen, Sarah.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
Stop share. There we go.
And I will ask, Jordan, it might be nice to have your screen share for people to, for reference.
Sure, no
Thanks.
problem. I just wanted to say in response to that, the comment that it shouldn't have been approved, that that's actually not the case. That again, what was found was that there was a procedural deficiency and that we should have returned. The judge found nothing wrong with the approval in any other capacity other than we should have returned to the community board. And that's why we're here tonight.
Great. So I'm going to call on Michael Hiller. You should be allowed.
Sorry, one second. Let me respond to Jordan.
Sure.
We are drawing, and I'm drawing a bright line in my notes, and then we'll discuss between one's views and opinions versus issues with the legality and the regulations. So I'll be very careful about that. Sorry, carry on, Valerie.
Okay. Oh no. Okay, so Michael Hiller.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. First of all, thank you for recognizing my questions earlier. Can you turn the chat button on just so I can pop something in there, please? Thank you. Thank you very much for hearing me today. My name is Michael Hiller. I'm a land use, zoning, and preservation lawyer. I was deeply involved in the designation of these buildings. I was involved in all the hearings before the LPC when the C of A was considered. And most importantly, I was the lawyer who prosecuted Ray versus the city of New York, and I won the case. And so let me begin by telling you that the information you're getting today is not exactly correct. And I've just put in the chat, the decision. It wasn't that the small sliver of the building was hanging over and that should have been brought to the community board. It actually is that the proposal approved by the LPC and the proposal for which there was a public hearing bore no resemblance to each other in terms of size, shape, and location. So just so that we're clear, the procedural violation didn't have anything to do with this community board. It's the fact that the Landmarks Preservation Commission approved a project for which there was no actual public hearing. And I will also point out in response to Jordan, and forgive me, I didn't see your last name. It is not correct that the court saw no problem with the rest of the project. The court never reached that issue because of the procedural violation. I'm going to use my time sparingly here because I only have 2 minutes, but I urge the members of the committee to await their determination by waiting for the written submissions, which I intend to provide in the future. It suffices to say that the size, scale, and mass of this building will reflect substantially on these two landmark buildings. Even though there's a small portion, a relatively small portion on the landmark buildings, it actually does reflect on both landmark buildings. And as a consequence, it's very much within your jurisdiction, and it was very much within the Landmark Preservation Commission's jurisdiction. I think that's a critical part to consider. In addition, I think it's also important to recognize that notwithstanding what you heard earlier, these two buildings were designated for two reasons, both cultural and architectural. I have heard the applicant on multiple occasions attempt to dismiss the architectural features. It is, if you read the designation report and read the hearing transcript, I can assure you architectural significance is critical here. And if you look at the facade of the building, the Romanesque 19th century style, and you contrast that with the massing on the top of the building, what you see is a genuine asymmetry, not just in bulk and size, as I mentioned earlier, but in style. And lastly, before I conclude, I do want to emphasize that there is a significant issue here with respect to how this building will appear within the district. I recognize that it is not part of the Greenwich Village Historic District at the present time, but I do think it's incredibly important to consider what this is going to look like, particularly from the vantage point where I believe it was slide 13, where if you're standing about 25 feet from the building, you can see, if someone could show that to me, I think it was 13. Thank you for pulling that up. Yes, you can see quite clearly the building in the back, as well as the rooftop addition, the 3-story and the 4-story rooftop addition on top. If you look at your agenda, it's listed by the applicant as a 3-story addition, but I want to emphasize to each committee member, this is not a 3-story addition. It is a 7-story addition. And as you can see from this picture, from this rendering, that 7-story addition is fully visible and does reflect on the two buildings in front. And so again, I ask if you would please to await my submission of written materials, because I do think it's important that I have the opportunity to present the arguments to you and the information. And if you don't have any questions for me, I'm glad to close. But again, I do know quite a bit about this building and the lawsuit. So if anyone has any questions, I'm glad to answer.
We have, from the committed point of view, typically we take submissions ahead of time. We take submissions after, which can only properly weigh on the discussion by the full board, because we are required to come up with the essence of our resolutions that we bring to the board at this meeting, because it's a public meeting. So that the what will weigh much more is what you have said, and anything that was submitted ahead of, if it's submitted before the end of the will need to be incorporated into the board discussion.
Mr. Chair, if I just may say that one of the reasons why I was unable to submit materials in advance was that, and I say this with the greatest respect to the presenter here, but it wasn't exactly a model of clarity to me what this project actually was going to be. I saw 3-story addition, and then I saw what was previously presented. And so I wasn't quite sure what this presentation was going to be until I heard it tonight. So I would ask, given that the presentation, I should say the materials were uploaded only on Tuesday, which was Veterans Day, Whereas the materials for the other applications that were heard tonight were actually provided well in advance. I would ask that you defer your determination at least until you have the opportunity to see the full presentation, the full materials I can provide, because quite frankly, 2 minutes is just not a lot of time. And for me to respond on the fly, it is just very difficult. Would it be possible to do that?
That's fine. But what we would need to do is to, at the board, to do the modification.
I'm sorry, you just cut out. I couldn't hear what you said.
Sorry, I'm going to turn my camera off. This can be presented as a recommended modification by a member of the board at the board meeting. That's perfectly in order. We also accept oral testimony at the board meeting.
Yeah, unfortunately,
on Thursday.
The only, and I don't want to argue with you, believe me, but it does deprive the members of this committee the opportunity to see those materials before they vote, which is unfortunate.
Well, but the full board is the one that finally votes on this, and modifications at the board meeting are perfectly in order. So they'll receive a due hearing just at the full board meeting. And anything ahead will be distributed to the board so that they'll have anything that's written testimony.
I understand.
Okay, yeah, I understand.
I can say about it. I can't hear him, sorry.
There's no other public meeting.
Chanel, can I ask a question? Can you hear me?
Just wait. Did you hear? We can do it on Thursday night at the board meeting, and written testimony can be submitted.
I'm sorry, when you say we can do it, I'm sorry, what's the it?
We can do, modification. Modification of the resolution that goes to the commission can be done at the board meeting.
Right, I understand. So as
So
I understand,
it would have to be preferably in writing ahead of that board meeting.
Yeah, but
and
just
there
so
could be oral testimony at the board meeting.
Right. So, but
Okay.
what my question earlier was, would this committee be voting on this application before the submission of modifications? I presume the answer is yes, because if you're
Yes,
modifying
the
this
committee will,
resolution-
but the board will not. Is the answer? Okay. Is that clear?
I have a
just
question
a
on this.
Just a moment, Anita. I just
Sure.
want to be sure that it's clear what I've said.
It's clear. And
Okay,
is it,
I
is
understand
it
that. I understand that your preference is otherwise, but that's the open meeting that we're operating under.
I
So
understand. And the written testimony goes to hello@cb2manhattan.org.
Yes, of the landmarks November. Okay, you can check with the board if you need further information, because
That's
we
the
do need
correct
to move
email.
on.
That's the correct email.
Okay, I believe that satisfies it. Yes, Anita, what is your question?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to ask, I was under the impression that we were reviewing the storefront only. And then
No. I
and
said,
then at 5:30, no, I know, but I got an email later that said we're reviewing the whole thing.
no, we're reviewing what was presented tonight.
I know, but didn't it change in scope today? Was it always the whole project?
Yes, it was. It was wildly confusing. We'll discuss it in the
Okay, very good.
later session.
No
Can
problem.
we have the next public person, please?
Sure. Okay.
May I remind people that the chat is out of order because we are reproducing as closely as possible a regular meeting with all of the participants present. Valerie, next, please.
Okay. Karen Nakbar.
Hi, thanks. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I live at 49 East 12th Street, which is represented in the photo that's on the screen in the red brick building to the left of the two landmark buildings. Our building is an L shape actually, and we have a our entrance is on 12th Street. And so the proposed work sites will essentially envelop our building on two of our four sides, which is extraordinarily distressing. I've lived in this building for 21 years. I have a quiet apartment on what is now a quiet courtyard. I love this neighborhood for its history, beautiful buildings, and sense of community. And the work that is proposed is going to destroy that. Like all of you, I'm essentially a prisoner in my apartment. I work here, I live here, I'm here 23 hours a day. And the construction that will take place is on 2 of the 4 walls of my apartment. Not really sure how I'm going to.
Ma'am, we need to be clear that the construction you're talking about is the construction on the landmark portion of the 3 buildings.
It's on the landmark portion as well as the other side.
Okay.
On the
Okay.
landmark portion, yes.
Okay.
So the design, you know, we've talked about that at previous meetings, is absolutely hideous. I don't understand how that belongs in Greenwich Village above 2 beautiful landmark buildings, but I just want to, for the record, and I'm happy to send you an email on this, but we're talking about construction that's going to completely ruin the quality of life of every resident in our building, and it's incredibly distressing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Karen.
Next, we have John. John C.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with Karen. I live at 49 East 12th Street as well. And I can't believe we're talking about like the front of the building when we're proposing potentially this disgusting thing on the top of a beautiful landmark preserved building in Greenwich Village. Like what how are we back here again? I don't even know how we got back here again. This is terrible. And it's just gonna ruin everything in the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Valerie, next person.
Sure. Michael Rabb.
Hi. I sent the board an email this morning or this afternoon, and I included 6 photographs. I took a little walk this afternoon in our neighborhood, starting at 12th Street and Broadway down to 9th Street, over to 4th Avenue and back around. So it's a total of about 6 to 8 blocks. And in that space, there were constructed or under construction 6 glass and steel glass facade buildings.
Sir, could you please address the proposal that is before us? That's what the
well, I'm sorry,
proposal is about.
Because I think that the subject of my email said enough, enough, enough. In a neighborhood that is filled with buildings that have been constructed just after the...
Sir, the neighborhood is not landmark. The buildings in question, the building, which is 2 buildings, is landmark. We have to address that and only address here. There are other fora at which to address neighborhood concerns.
Okay, I think this is a very inappropriate extension and an inappropriate construction for this building. For this building, it is like wearing polka dots and plaid in the same day, in the same outfit. It's just inappropriate and does not belong over this building.
Okay,
that-
thank you, thank you. That's exactly right. I mean, that's within the scope of what we consider.
Okay. Thank you.
And will inform our discussions. Okay, thank you. Next.
Okay, next we have Kavita.
Hello, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everyone. So I also am a resident of 49 East 12th Street. And I just want to say, based on, I attended the previous presentations and, just in looking at what was presented today by the applicant, this doesn't address the architectural significance of the building and the impact of the addition on the building in terms of visibility. So the visibility issues are still there, even if they're slightly reduced. And it also, as has been brought up, the overhang from the non-landmark building is also of concern. So that hasn't been addressed. And then in terms of what was talked about by the applicant in terms of the cultural significance, this building as presented doesn't, the plan that was presented does not do anything to raise awareness. Those are the words that were used. There's no public art gallery, there's no arts organization, so there's no enrichment happening in the neighborhood that brings attention to the artists that were in this building. So I think that, it doesn't really address either of any of those things. And what it takes away is a great deal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Next we have Rachel.
Hello, I am also a resident of 49 East 12th. I am just kind of wanting to ask about the due process of the presentation being sent out, just making sure that that indeed is taken into account. It just seems like a little strange.
Okay, thank you.
Can I respond? I think it's been mentioned a few times that we didn't get this presentation in on time, and to be clear, we sent it last Friday.
Okay, thank you. Next.
The presentation should be available on the CB2 website, but knowing whenever this version was sent, which I guess you said was, that should be the one up on the website. All right. 1 second.
I'll just say there were some revisions, but they were not material revisions, in particular to things that we're discussing about visibility and dimensions and storefronts and that sort of thing. Thank you. Okay.
Next, we have Zachary.
Hi. Yes, I'm also a resident of 49 East 12th Street. And a lot of what I was going to say has already been said, but what I would just add is, as was mentioned before, there were two separate reasons why these buildings were landmarked, both the architectural as well as the cultural significance. And, both of those would be undermined by this project. The architectural design would be inconsistent with the, old, beautiful buildings that are there now, because although the visibility is reduced from the past project, it's still visible from the street and does not mesh with the intent of the landmarking or of the neighborhood as a whole. And in terms of the cultural significance, having a small little plaque on the front is hardly showing, a community engagement with or developing any connection to the artist about which this building was supposed to be. And so I think it is if that is sufficient to make it consistent with the intent, then the standards of this board are really going downhill. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Lauren Gonzalez.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a resident of 49 East 12th Street. I just want to echo my fellow residents' point of view. You know, I like modern and abstract art as much as the next person. It just is a total mismatch to our neighborhood and the standards that we've been following. You know, it just doesn't belong in the same building structure as the bottom portion of the building. You know, it's and quite frankly, it looks hideous in context.
Next, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Zachary? Oops.
Hey, I already spoke. I think you had me twice accidentally.
Oh, okay. Laura Stampler?
But before she speaks, Valerie, there's someone trying to get on with the chat who seems to be having trouble with the raising hands. Can you just say how to raise a hand?
You click on raise the hand. I don't know what it is on the phone, so I'm not, I forget what it is on the phone, so I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'll just call them next.
Okay, well, except that the person who can't get through with the raised hand can send a chat, but please no comments with the chat. Okay, thank you. Whom did you just call on?
Oops.
Laura?
Yeah. Laura Stampler.
Yeah. Person needs to click on participants, and then there's a raise hand at the bottom of the list.
No, we're talking about a phone, I think, right? Next.
Yes. I am also a resident of 49 East 12th, and I'm seconding our opposition to this. I love de Koonin and his abstract work, but the only comparison I can see is abstract, to be perfectly honest. I don't see a connection to, I don't know, the homage that, or any of the relation to the, I guess you could call it artwork. I think that's taking it pretty broadly, a broad definition of it, that goes over the landmark building. As nice as it is to kind of juxtapose new and old and different things, I think that kind of the slide 11 to kind of bear any resemblance is a large stretch, but you know, have at it what you will. And I truly wonder what he would be thinking about that comparison. I also think that the portion, which I believe is 7 floors, and the people who are creating this project, I think they keep on trying to say that it is 3, but that's not exactly the case, trying to kind of minimize the actual eyesore that will be created, that will be the only thing that is seen when looking at this building. And it will reflect on the rest of the street. It will reflect onto the amount that is a landmark, the facade. And I believe a committee member may have been speaking about kind of in the addition when it's talking about the wood doors versus kind of the plate glass and complaining about, you know, those windows. And I mean, I think if anything, what's going to be on top in the landmark portion is only going to elevate that eyesore and bring out some of the parts that, you know, this committee may be the most concerned with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Zachary, did you speak already?
Yeah, he spoke already twice.
Sorry, the hands are just still raised. Richard Friedman.
Mute. Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Hi, I'm Richard Friedman. I am the co-op board president at 39 East 12th Street. Thank you for taking my question. I realize—
what address, please?
I'm sorry?
What address?
39 East 12th Street.
39.
Right. I'm the building adjacent to the building where the developer is proposing the 7-story addition. And although I realize that the committee is considering just the landmark, I really want to underscore what many other people have said, which is that this addition the 7-story building behind the landmark area and abuts this area is what people will see from the street. And it is obtrusive, it's large, and it's really an eyesore in the neighborhood. And the other thing I would like to draw your attention to is that I think that Michael Hiller made some very important points. And I hope that the procedural and legal problems that the developer is involved in is not obscured by the technicalities of the community board. I think those points are very, very important to take into consideration. And I hope that you will before you make a decision. Thank you very much.
Sir, I want to check the address. You are 39 East 12th, and you would know, are the other speakers from 49? There's
Correct.
a 39
The
and
others
a
are
49.
from 49.
Oh, okay.
They're two distinct buildings. We are neighbors, and in between us is the building 47.
It's just a hearing question.
Yes.
I would say in reply to what you said, recall what I said in the beginning, that we are considering this as though it's a new application, so that even the circumstance of its coming here are not really foremost in our mind, but rather what we have seen and what's presented to us that has landmark significance.
Right, I understand, but the addition does have profound impacts on even the minimal landmark designation.
Right, we understand what you're saying, and that I just want to be clear that we're not considering the reason it's here. We're considering what is before us as though we never saw anything.
Understood.
Okay. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Michael Tamburo. So 1 second. Oh, I don't know what happened to Michael. Michael Murray.
Yes, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hey everyone, I am also a resident of 49 East 12th Street, along with my girlfriend Laura Roberts. And I'd like to reiterate also what the residents of 49 East 12th Street said, specifically how the addition proposed above the landmark building is not in any way symbolic of the Renaissance revival style of that particular building, nor the surrounding buildings. And it's frustrating that this proposed glazing and the reflectivity of that glass doesn't reflect the integrity of the neighborhood upon which it will sit. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is Janet Markoff.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
great. I'm sorry about that. As one of the old timers in 49 East 12th Street, I've lived in the building for nearly 37 years. I echo what my fellow shareholders have said about the artistic connection with the historical facts and what is being built on that. But I will also say, I'm concerned about the safety of our building when, 7-story abomination is being built right next to us, and even a part of the landmark building. It'll shake our building's foundation. And I think it'll put us at risk in our building. And, as a landmark committee, to keep the integrity of our neighborhood, which has always been an artistic, caring community, to rock our foundation this way, which is literally what this development would do, really, sort of poisons what our 12th Street apartment building and neighborhood is all about.
concerns about the integrity of your building as a result of the construction, that should be addressed through your representative to the Department of Buildings. It's their specific task to ensure that no buildings are harmed, including landmark buildings on which the work is done.
Yeah, but this is totally related to what you're going to approve or not approve.
It's just a question of correct address for your concern.
Well, this is part of our concern. This is part of our concern.
Okay,
yeah.
I understand, but that address needs to go to the Department of Buildings. Please don't talk over, somebody is talking. So, that address goes to Department of Buildings, and they are very, very good on this, and it's their responsibility. Okay, let me ask anyone who has spoken to be sure that you've lowered your hand so that Valerie's list is not ambiguous. Valerie, next.
Next is David Rubin. Do you go already? I'm so sorry. I just can't raise and lower the hands.
Oh, no. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? I do not live on 12th Street, but I am interested in the neighborhood. And I was looking at the community board announcement, and it said 3-story building on top of the structures in question. Is entirely misleading. Even when we got the plans, which we didn't see until today, we looked at the plans and I saw one picture of a 3-story structure, and then I saw another picture of a 11-story structure. It wasn't really until we got here tonight that I knew that the scope of the project—
Sir, would you please just state your point? We are aware of all the things you said.
Okay, well, my point is this. I find there was lack of proper notice. The structure is even larger than the initial structure. There was lack of proper notice, and I would like you to adjourn the determination on this for to your next hearing, so we can adequately review it and respond. Thank you.
We are not able to adjourn an item.
Well,
direct and respond. May I finish? We must respond in a timely fashion in order for our views and your views to be heard by the Landmarks Preservation Committee.
If I could respond.
It has been on our community board website for several days, in essence, the same proposal. Okay, thank you, Valerie.
Sure.
Again, I'd like to remind everyone who's spoken, lower your hands so Valerie's list is clean.
Next, we have Antonia Cove.
Hi there. My name is Antonia Cove. I live here along with my fiance, Darren Broxmeyer. We as well are residents, and we just want to, voice the same concerns that everyone has. To be perfectly frank, it looks like a Mack truck from Mars on top of a building. I would think that the architectural preservation would also extend to the aesthetic. The aesthetic doesn't necessarily even reflect, it's an interpretation of what these artists accomplished. And I am a lover of these artists, I am a student of these artists, but I don't see the correlation. And I think that it's a very thinly veiled attempt to tie it in together, to put something up that you can download on an app to just give you some history. We're also concerned about the safety of our building. I know that that's not to be addressed, but I just wanted to also parrot that concern. And they just don't look like they go together, frankly. I mean, everybody here, we're talking about the facade. People are talking about the windows. The styles are completely in disharmony with one another. So I think that we're just also voicing the same concerns. And thank you.
Thanks. Next is Robert Harvey.
Hi, you can hear me, right? Yes, okay. Yeah, Robert Harvey, I'll be very, very brief. I also live, like Richard Friedman, at 39 East 12th Street, 39, not 49. I'm also a member of the board here. And I'm a professor of philosophy and aesthetics, and I'd simply like to appeal to the aesthetics of the taste of the members of the committee to simply observe that this addition is totally out of keeping with the building. Whether the fact that it's hidden from the street is a good thing, because that way few people from the street will be able to see it. Unfortunately, the residents of the neighboring buildings will be able to see it, and it has the aesthetic appeal to me, similar to the correctional facility that was built on the Bowlmore to take the place of Bowlmore on University between 13th and 12th. The need for the additional volume, I guess your committee doesn't involve itself in that, but I don't understand what that additional volume is for. I also don't understand why our building, all of the windows on the east side of the building will be occluded by the 11-story building that'll be built, that is planned to be built on the little tiny building on 12th Street, which does encroach quite a bit, as your committee knows, on the landmark building. So those are my remarks. It's hideous.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Next, we have Mariana.
Good evening, everyone. I am moving into the building 49 East 12th Street with my little son, Ethan. I am new to this building. However, I am supporting my neighbors. The reason I chose this neighborhood and this particular apartment is because of the aesthetics of what East 12th Street looks like. And to be quite honest, if I would have known in advance that this project is coming up, maybe I wouldn't consider purchasing in this building. So I just wanted to share that thought. I hope you guys consider maybe changing up the style or just not going with it at all. Thank you so much for hearing me out.
Thank you. Next, Valerie.
All right. We have Evan.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'll be very brief. I just want to echo the opposition to construction of my fellow neighbors in 49 East 12th Street. Every reason has already basically been stated. I don't have to go over it again. Yeah, I think the people that live here, know what's best for this neighborhood, and I would just pay careful attention to what people have to say. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we have Michael.
Hi, this is Michael Tamburo. I'm also from 49 East 12th Street, and you heard from our neighbor Karen first. Karen was really generous when she said we had a courtyard in our building. If you look at the plan view, 49 East 12th Street is actually two buildings, 825 Broadway and 49 East 12th Street. That courtyard is just really a compromised air shaft. And this 11-story building is going up right next to it. Now, the part of the building, if you consider those 24 square feet per floor, which is hanging over the landmark portion of the building, I imagine you have to have some sort of like compromise if you allow that to be built for the sake of easier building. So please, if you're considering that compromise, think about the compromised air shaft that we really live on right beneath that. I was also surprised that one of the other committee members thought we were just discussing the facade today. And lastly, when we heard earlier, 224 West 10th Street, we talked for quite a bit about a sliver of visibility on the top of that building where it was nearly impossible to achieve ceiling height and stair riser compliance. I'm not an architect, but it seemed like that volume was as small as could possibly be. And this seems the complete opposite, just as large as it can possibly be, and shifting that volume to the other side just to maintain that size. Thanks for considering all of this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Next, please.
There appears to be no more raised hands from the public.
No, we're not going to have Rachel Ray talk again. Valerie, you might not have seen this last time this came before us. Rachel Ray
Got it.
opposed this presentation.
Before my time.
I think we heard from her husband earlier.
Okay. Is there are there other questions? Have we exhausted the questions? If so, thank you, everybody. Thank you all the neighbors and dear residents who came. And thank you, Valerie, for organizing all
thank
these
you, everybody.
people to speak.
Thank you, everybody. Please keep coming back if you want to get involved with our community.
Okay. We will, I'll ask the committee, can we just take a moment to take a swallow of water and then move on to our resolution?
Chanel, there's one more hand raised.
Oh, sorry. We're doing the best we can, bless her heart.
Hey.
Okay, the last person to speak.
Rachel Ray.
Sorry, honey.
Tell them how.
Sorry, my husband was very vivid before. Disgusting is not the words I would have chosen. I am a resident of 49 East 12th Street, although it's been several months since I've been home, but I love my home. And my concerns are more to what my neighbors were speaking to earlier. Janet, it literally lives across the way from us. And
I'm sorry, could you speak up just a little louder? Thank you.
I'm sorry. I was saying that my husband was perhaps using colorful and vivid language with disgusting. I don't find the proposal disgusting. I find it thoughtful, and I understand that people are presenting their best work for this project. But like my neighbor across the hall, Janet, I am very concerned not only about what the look and the structure is and what that does to the neighborhood, but for our actual home. I really love our home. It's very special to us. And especially this year, I come from upstate New York and New York City. 49 East 12th Street has been my home in New York for many, many years now, well over a decade.
Died or house.
And my home here burned to the ground this summer. I lost it. And to think that we might lose our apartment on top of that is kind of unthinkable. I do think that a lot of thought has gone into this structure, and they've presented this again. I do not see how it's going to be a public space that celebrates the lives of the art movement that were attached to them. I don't know how it speaks to the landmark part of that. I guess I'm misunderstanding it. If it's a private place, how is that speaking to the neighborhood other than maybe a small plaque? So I don't think that it's architecturally or artistically what I think of as my neighborhood. And, you know, on a very base level, I'm very scared that I will lose our home. And we love it, and we've cared for it, and we've put a lot into it. And I enjoy the folks that live in our building. And I think of all of us as a small community within a larger community. So it's very emotional to think about losing that. And I feel that this structure and how it's going to, the work that will have to go into its construction might literally mean the end of us. So I understand what we said earlier in the meeting, that is perhaps a separate department and a separate worry, but my concerns are both that this is not in keeping with the beauty and the charm and the history of our neighborhood, and the the thoughtful presentation doesn't really speak to me as, you know, public passersby aren't going to get that connection, I feel. And it could mean the end of a whole lot of people's homes. So those are my concerns, and I understand they may be different committees that speak to that, but.
Okay, thank you. And I believe we understand the important part that I gathered for our consideration is that the addition, which was described as being inspired by and celebrating the artist, doesn't do so. That's really the part that's important for us.
Part that speaks to your community. Yeah, I just don't, I don't get that folks that are passing by would understand that. And it's not going to be a public place, a public space. So those are my concerns. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Valerie, we have come to the end of the public as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
And so may we take just a moment with the committee and come back.
Yes, boss.
Let me remind everyone that anyone is welcome to stay for our deliberations, and speaking can only be done by being asked to speak by the committee.
I'm going to move Jordan and crew over.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Hey, Jordan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jordan.
Jordan, it was a
and we
thank you.
will
Great
have
presentation.
we'll
Thank you.
give the
Thank you very
committee
much.
just a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Hey, Valerie. How are you?
Good.
So yeah, I don't think you were part of the board when, and Brian, same with you. You guys were part of the previous presentation. That was like one of my first presentations, and I don't know, you could see that they're like that architecture firm. They're very thoughtful and compelling. It was just really interesting to see this new version because that hadn't come before us. The sort of like bent glass is new. I don't know if you kind of caught that sort of like triangular fragmented presentation. That was what was presented to us. And yeah, I just thought that was a lot more compelling. I thought that was a lot more interesting. And it's sort of a shame to sort of see how it's transformed. Although it's still a beautiful, beautiful, building. I just happen to sort of now align with more of what the community is saying, that it's a bit of more of a springboard from, I guess, the interpretation of some of these abstract expressionists,
How much of that will be visible from the street, though, is my question.
All of it. You can see, I mean, not all of it, I'm sorry. It is a lot more modest of a presentation. Before, I think it was like either 4 or 5,
Right.
Now it's 3. But I mean, I can show you this, I can share my screen of what that presentation will look like, and it is absolutely visible. And frankly, I almost kind of think it should be, if their argument is that it celebrates what's happening inside, you kind of want it to be visible, right? And sort of, so I could show you.
But again, it's 3 full floors would be visible from the street is what I'm understanding.
I don't know if it's 3 full, can you see my screen?
Okay, we're back with the meeting. I can't tell who's away and who's not with the.
Can you see my screen? Mm-hmm. So I think it's like maybe 1.5 that's clearly visible.
Just a moment, please, everybody. Can we? I just want to determine who's here.
I'm here.
Valerie, I think, is still away.
What?
Val's there.
I'm here.
Val's there.
Valerie, you there?
I'm right here.
Eugene, you're there.
I'm here.
Okay.
Carter's there.
And everybody else appears to be here at home. Okay, what is the wish, to start with this one and work backwards, or to start at the beginning?
You might as well. No, whatever you guys want to do.
Let's.
I like starting with this one. Yes.
Yeah.
Please don't talk on top of each other. It's we keep cutting into the screen, into the thing. Just a moment. Okay. We have basically three parts, if you will, two parts on the roof and the facade. One minor thing on the facade above the ground floor, and the two storefronts. So it's hard to find the application.
Well,
okay. If we could begin with the now 3-story rooftop addition, it seems to be clear from the presentation what there is. The real issue is its facade and its visibility. Who would comment on those two things together? And if you could say your say, and then we'll move on if others want to speak on some particular thing. Brian, you want to speak about this? Please be careful about extra noise, or turn off your microphone, because other pictures keep cutting in. That's distracting. Okay, Michael, did you want to say something about the?
I think Brian was going to mention something.
Michael, are you there? Okay, Mustafa, do you want to speak about the?
Oh, yes, the only question I had before proceeding, and I think I got an answer, Shnort, when you walked away, is how much is visible from the street? And I think the answer I got was 1.5 stories. Even though it's 3, it's 1.5 stories.
Michael, I don't recall.
I think the answer we got from the committee members is 1.5.
There was a drawing about what it looks like, and a picture that purported to show it. So that's it. Okay. Does anyone on the committee wish to speak about the addition?
I'd like to speak.
I'll say something. I think, is it me or no?
Yes, Anita.
Okay. Well, first of all, I do think it's hugely improved. I will want to put that out there, because compared to what it was, the mass has been greatly reduced. But it is obviously a very dramatic statement on top of the roof. And what is it, 12th Street or 13th Street, where you see, it looks like a container lying on top of the roof. And, it is the landmark building, what's behind it as well. That was, I think, the point of the Greenwich Village Society. And, I think we have to take that into consideration if you're trying to preserve a historic building. You can't just put anything behind it.
Okay, let's get all that, and then I'll try to sum up what we've said. Are there others who wish to speak about the rooftop addition and the intrusion of the
hi.
tower? Bo?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I agree with Anita and probably other people. It's they're pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. It is completely out of context. It's inappropriate. It's kind of ridiculous. Some of the claims they made as to its relevance is so far-fetched as to be offensive, frankly. And it really needs to be turned down, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Are there others who wish to speak?
I wish to speak. I think, Chanel, you introduced this part of the discussion as being about facade and visibility of the 3-story structure, and to the facade, to the aesthetics of the addition facade subject, I would say that the architect's rationale of this as some sort of homage to abstract expressionist artists is a completely specious argument, that it is, you know, superficially plausible, but totally wrong. And, you know, so that's what I feel very strongly, as did pretty much everybody who spoke from the public, and undoubtedly most of the members of this committee, about the aesthetic aspect of this addition. In terms of visibility, it is visible. Is it less visible than what was presented before? Absolutely. Is it visible? Yes, it's visible. There's no question. There are two vantage points in particular from which it is very clearly visible.
But as we continue this, I would remind the committee, because we don't have it so often, is we pay, and the commission normally pays great attention, especially to an individual landmark, because we're considering something that was landmarked. And the attorney who spoke was absolutely correct about the designation being of the artists who live there and the worth of the building itself architecturally, even if there had been anonymous people living there. Are there others who wish to speak about this?
Is not the proper procedure to keep from talking over one another to raise one's hand?
No, it's more noise. It's people are not careful leaving the mic. The best thing is for everyone to close their mic except when they want to speak, and then it just flows like a natural conversation. It's noise of microphones that is bad. Do you want to speak, Michael, about this?
I think Michael has already spoken.
Okay. Are there others?
I would like to speak. Is there something wrong with my mic?
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the screen and go speak. Brian.
Okay. I agree that if there is a visibility of an addition on top of a landmark building, we consider that very strongly. And we argue against anything that's visible above a landmark building. In this case, it's obviously visible. Now, I can go on about this particular glass as opposed to the prism that was previously done, but I think it's irrelevant, and therefore I won't go on about that. And I would also say that the 7-story portion, which is mostly on the non-landmark building, if we allow even a small incursion onto the landmark building, I think that violates our calling or our purpose. And if it takes some construction fine tuning to make it outside of this landmark building, I think we have to enforce that. So in both cases, both the visibility from the street and encroachment on the landmark building have to be honored. Thank you.
Okay, I think we all understand those 2 points. I was surprised that no member of the public brought up the question of landmarking the 12th Street building. The Preservation Society did, and we had, I think, talked about the inappropriateness of not doing it. I want to say more of what we can do than what I would advocate for, because I shouldn't advocate as the chair, is we can recommend delaying an application until consideration is given to landmarking the 12th Street building as an addition to the individual landmark. That's what we would have hoped to begin with, and it didn't happen, but it can be requested again. I think we can, in addition to that it makes sense that the building is not unworthy, that section, that it's splitting up what is a whole into pieces and making selective landmarks of one unit. Now, if we're going to deal with what is presented, we can recommend denial of the rooftop structure, the new part that shows, and we can recommend that the tower section must not intrude on the building itself.
I like that. That's good, Chanel. Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's good.
But do we want to include it's a big thing to include the requesting of a postponement until the question of landmarking the 12th Street building as part of the individual landmark is considered. Yes.
Sarah, what do you say? Sarah, what do you say?
Mustafa, he wants to say something.
I think
that, please. Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
I would welcome trying to get the 12th Street building landmarked. I don't think the LPC is not amenable to landmarking anything south of Union Square right now. So in the terms of immediacy, I don't think that's going to happen. That's my feeling on it.
Would it strengthen?
You know what would strengthen? We're trying to get this area landmarked so badly. So anything that you want to put forth that furthers that argument, I would completely ask you to do.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, but I think that the 12th Street building, getting it landmarked before that 7-story addition goes on top, probably isn't going to happen.
Okay, it's a technical decision then.
Yeah, technical. Yes.
This is something I have.
Yeah, it should have happened from the beginning. It's these are 3 buildings that were built at the same time in 1866 with Griffith Thomas as the architect. It should have happened. But is it going to happen now before we get the this permit goes through? Yeek.
What is the technicality of the 3 properties being united in some respects and not united in other respects?
Well, you know what's interesting is that, like with state and national register, you can't cut up properties, but in New York City you can. You can cut things up like this. And so they can only they did only landmark 2 parts of the building. They can cut a building in half if they want to in New York City. And that's not allowed with state and national register listing. So that's my understanding of it.
Okay, well, that's where we stand. That's very enlightening.
And depressing.
Okay, shall we put this a section, we come to the resolution, go on to discuss the rest? We have a clear picture here. Or no, let's settle it now because we won't have to come back. What I believe I have heard is that we want design of the facade that is before us. This is the 3-story addition. We disapprove of its being at all visible on an individual landmark. And we disapprove of any intrusion onto the landmark portion of the building. Is that the correct way to say it? By the tower. Sarah, I'm addressing you because your picture's still.
Me?
The towers being on a landmark portion of the building.
Yeah, so that's why I
Okay.
was trying to push, that's what I was trying to present. Like I knew that trying to get LPC to change what they already decided over on the landmark portion, trying to get that changed was
The best we can do.
yeah, not
practically.
probably not going to
Yeah.
happen.
Okay.
But to point out the fact that part of the addition is on the landmark portion of the building, which I think was always contentious. That's something we can hang our hat on a bit. What do you all think?
Yeah, that was what I was saying.
Yeah.
That short of landmarking the other building, we can't do anything about it.
Right.
Practically speaking.
Which we can't do.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just I'm sorry, Chanel.
Yeah.
Just one quick note. I pulled up their previous presentation, and it was one of my first presentations that I actually sat on, and I was like really, just taken back by it. I just thought it was a really great presentation, and it's just a compelling design. It was the exact same slides and this exact same presentation, not exact same, but two very, very different buildings, but the same exact sort of like context or line or connection to the abstract expressionism, from that sort of prismatic glass to that bent glass. Same presentation, two different buildings.
Right.
And I don't know.
They chopped it off and changed the facade. Okay.
And in fact, I actually like that other one a lot more, but that's
I
not what.
thought it was a beautiful design. I just didn't think it belonged on an 1866 building. When he was talking about the fact that, oh, there's cast iron and glass and stone, that was because when cast iron was first being introduced, and Mike Devonshire, one of the—
Okay, hang on a second. Let's be sure we're settled on the top first.
I beg your pardon.
We want to finish on the roof, and then we're going to go to the facade.
All right. Well,
we'll
at
be
any
there in a
rate,
minute.
it's a beautiful design, but it's not appropriate for this building, in spite of the abstract. Yeah. Okay, I'm leaving it alone. Go ahead.
Okay. Are we agreed then that we're going to say the things we're disapproving of are the facade, the visibility, the intrusion of the tower, which is called the 7-story building. Is there agreement that that's what we're going to say with respect to the rooftop?
Sounds good to me.
Yes. Without objection, we'll move on to the non-storefront part of the facade. I've heard no objection to the restoration.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Brad brought up the question of the windows on the north being changed. Is that something that has general support? Which would essentially mean
that he had a good thought process there. I mean, they were removing it from you're talking about the 2nd-story windows?
Yeah.
I think he had a good explanation for that. And I think it's fine. He brought it back to an earlier version of the historic building in the 80s.
The question is how that relates to the storefront underneath it. And that is kind of the same justification for changing from the existing back. We'll hold that a moment. The storefront. I heard no objection to the south storefront. And the north storefront, there seems there are 3 alternatives. They're leaving it as it is. They're leaving it as the design is and possibly increasing the amount of glazing. Or there is the proposal that they have put forward. Anita, speak.
Okay, well, I think they're making a big mistake with the design of the doors. I mentioned that to them. I think there's too much glass, too little wood, and therefore they're making the doors shorter. That was his justification for the little mini transom. I don't think those doors in Soho are sometimes 15 feet tall or 12 feet tall. There's no reason why they can't do it here.
Right, we've got all that from before, but the bigger question is, do we want whatever's there to what they presented or a version of what exists?
Oh. I would
Does
change
anyone
it.
want to speak
I
on
think
that?
that's a very fussy one. I think it's nice.
Will someone else comment on that?
Well, my comment is that I don't think that we need to ask them to restore something that is existing now. If they're going to change it, they should be going back to a previous historic style.
And it's our view that this is not my point about the plate glass, for example.
Yeah, I think all of Anita's points that all the points that Anita brought up to the presenter are entirely well taken about the, kind of minginess of the wood in relationship to the door, the minginess of the transom, the lack of substantiality to all of that for a building of that heft.
Then are we in agreement that the changing of style is to be approved with a more substantial, for Susan, sum up word, rendition of what's there? Does anyone object to that general idea? I can't tell if Susan's screen's frozen and nobody else wants to speak.
I think we're all kind of quiet right now.
Yeah, no, we agree. I think we all agree, Chenault.
Okay. We'll say the north and put in some of the generally more substantial. They're trying to get every inch of glass, obviously, and it's ended up looking like steel. We want the wood to say it's wood, and with Anita's details.
Yeah, I would just on that same, and not to get on your bad side, Chanel, but those plate glass windows existed in Soho when they built the loft building. So it's not, that particular element is not out of keeping with the loft building. I just want to go on record. But the detailing of it is too slight.
And sum up, as Susan said, the wood period in the weight that the wood would have in a period version.
Absolutely, absolutely, and the detailing. I mean, it's detailed as steel. I mean, it must be like super wood. I've never seen wood that can do what it's doing in this drawing. So I definitely think that would help it a lot.
Okay, and I'll put a few of the details like the transom and the width of the wood.
And the amount.
Okay. And are we going to leave out or add as an addendum the part about landmarking the 12th Street? We're perfectly free to decry something that the 12th Street building wasn't included.
I don't think it hurts. Just, I mean, it doesn't hurt to say that. We'll have their attention. We believe that. Why not add it
I agree. We should just say
to
it.
it? But I also want
Particularly in
to make
this case,
one other point apropos of the 12th Street building, which we've sidestepped a little bit, which I think we may have some purchase in this argument, which is that the tremendous visual impact of that, it's not just the physical encroachment of that one corner of the tower onto the literal landmarks building, but that there is the aesthetic encroachment of that entire 7-foot struck tower on the Broadway facade. I mean, it does reflect in an aesthetic way on the Broadway building. And so one could argue that it, even though it's not physically on a landmark's property, that it is tremendously impactful on the landmarked property.
I want to ask one more detail about the visibility. I've made a cryptic note and never got to talk about it. Would it be in keeping with what we often say about, more particularly in the village, but an individual landmark requires extra attention, that the addition is more than minimally visible, and as the perfect example was the 10th Street house, that if it were minimally visible, we don't want to see modern glass in an appropriate or a suitable material. It's more than minimally visible. I don't think I'm contradicting anything. I'm trying to be clearer. Would we accept minimum visibility?
I mean, I would absolutely accept minimal visibility.
No.
I really would. I mean, it seems like a reasonable
that's in keeping
compromise.
with I don't recall anything where we've said that absolutely no visibility at all.
Right.
Could be.
Yeah, and again, if they're championing, just a connection to the community of some sort of abstract expressionism through the building's new design, then maybe that can be accomplished through that expansion where it's minimally,
Okay. Are we settled on this difficult one? If we go back to the beginning, just for the ease of my notes, if I can find it in all these. Okay, the facade, dark brown stucco. We didn't see the.
Oh, this is 220, not 224. This is 235 West 11th Street.
Yes. Stucco and dark brown.
Right. I mean, is there any way we could just say, hey, look, we didn't have the appropriate information in front of us for this presentation?
Yeah.
And then just move on to the next presentation. We didn't have any information about the existing conditions. We had no materiality. It was an incomplete submission. Let's go to the next presentation.
The double doors. No, I didn't hear any objection to that. The second floor windows, no objection. The surround.
You didn't hear Alina. But the lowering of the windows, it's clearly not in keeping with the landmark fabric. But I don't know. I'm okay with it. It's still
it's original design.
It's original.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
Yeah.
Then yeah.
The surround of the door, more substantial.
Okay. Again, if we had tax photos, if we had historic
Right.
photos, we would have known
Well,
that.
we don't,
Yeah.
so we,
Because I looked at the tax photos, and the tax photos didn't show that they were lowered. It showed exactly how it currently is.
okay,
From
I heard
1940s.
considerable talk about a surround that's more substantial.
Okay, yeah,
And
exactly.
the existing gate and railing was verified.
Mhm.
And the entry portion of the areaway is being lowered, and that was not presented but brought up by the committee, but it didn't seem to have any objection.
No. We can't object what we don't know.
Well, we saw that it was lowered.
Well, in that, yeah, but in that particular case, Mustafa, the area adjacent to the sidewalk wasn't modified. That is the same height. It's only right at the window along the, so, you know, I was worried that they were creating a relationship that wasn't typical, but
Right.
it's not really going to, that particular element is not going to have any effect. I don't
Well, of course, and I'm actually, I thought it was I think it's a beautiful building, and I'm sure we'd approve it, but like, we just shouldn't have everything in front of us. You kind of just caught that, you know? So
Yeah, I'm gonna note that. Rear facade.
I think Brian
Metal-
made a great point
metal-
about the rear facade and where they switched from a tripartite configuration to the 4 windows on that floor that was right above the
Right.
tea house.
Okay. Any objection to the bottom 2 floors, the tea house floor and the English basement floor? And the cladding for that, just to work up, Susan, I'm not, the dark metal cladding.
I don't mind it. It looks pretty handsome to me in this
Okay.
case.
Okay,
That's my
third
opinion.
floor. Susan,
Brian raised the what I think is a very excellent point about, you know, having switched from the tripartite configuration that would be typical of that building to four windows there on that floor above the tea porch. And I don't think they had a really good rationale for it. And the applicant alluded to the fact that Landmarks, you know, is really in favor of tea porches and tea houses, and they have 4 windows, therefore this other floor. I mean, I would totally flip that argument on its head and say, yes, if what we're trying to do is make clear and if the intention is to honor the tea porch architecture, then all the more reason to have the 3 windows on the floor above. They're more clearly defining the tea porch.
okay, okay. So
But
we're talking
Brian
about
say it better
we're talking
because
about the parlor floor then.
No,
Yeah.
not the parlor. Oh, no,
Uh,
the 3rd floor. 2nd floor, rather.
yeah, the 2nd floor is the parlor floor because of the renumbering, because of using the basement. It's very confusing always. But okay. So, and above that, then to 3, keeping the French doors opening onto the little balcony, but that they be in 3 rather than 4.
I
I'm
personally
just trying
don't
to
care,
extend
but
Susan's point.
I'll go along with it. I don't care. I think it's fine
Okay.
either way.
Okay, then it seems like the most agreeable thing to, in general, the ground floor is okay.
We're gonna have 4 openings.
Second floor.
We're gonna have 4 openings on the ground floor and 3 openings on the 2nd floor. I don't think that's right.
That is
Brian. Is that what your sentiment, like, if we bring it home, what's the end? What's the overall sort of comment here.
You have to look at the drawing. You're getting the floors confused. The bottom two are the steel that have four separations, and they're talking about the floor above that also has four.
Yes, the
but it
second
should have
floor.
three, whatever floor it is. Yeah, I don't even. I'm not gonna. But that, I
Okay,
think that's the one.
okay, let's stop and go floor by floor. The lowest floor, the floor that walks into the garden, is now for essentially a full width window.
It's
we have almost universally approved that for that story of buildings. The floor above, called the second floor, the parlor floor, has four, and Susan's suggesting three on account of the tea house reflection.
Okay.
The floor above that has four for no discernible reason.
I see.
Though the windows are of a different kind. And if we're going to have a tea house, it's okay to walk on the roof, presumably. So that gets out to that. The floor above is the original openings intact. So are we saying 4, 3, 3, 3 is what we want to end up with?
From my recollection, Chenault, the bottom level was a kind of a mishmash. That's the entrance to the terrace, the backyard. And that was probably infill after the tea house above it, which the tea house would have been on the parlor floor, I believe.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Yes.
No, we're really talking about not what was there, because that's a later addition, but what
to get there.
tea house concept.
I am trying to get there. So in the new designs, the bottom basement terrace level has 4 windows.
Correct.
To match the tea house above it on the parlor floor, where the tea house used to be, that's got 4 windows. Above the tea house is a terrace. And that's where they show 4 windows, but we feel like that should keep the original 3 part, as well as the floor above it, which they do show.
That's correct. That's what I'm saying. Susan has suggested 3 divisions for the tea house floor. That's what.
No. I'm saying what Brian says. So it's 4, 4, 3, 3.
Hey, okay, that was okay. 4, 4, 3, 3. Anybody object to that? Okay.
Thank you for the clarification. Sorry for the confusion.
My notes come to an end there unless I've missed something we've covered. So what we're approving, the garden. I didn't hear an objection or discussion about that.
No, the garden's great.
We're approving the garden, the 4, 4, 3, 3 floors, which means changing only one of them. The rear facade, the 2 finishes and the white above wrapping around onto the side we didn't see, and the problems and recommendations for the front. And the only recommendation is, from the information we have, is they surround for the door. I believe that does that. Is there any comment except on visibility? And Anita's comment about the facade on the north, which is peculiar but not visible.
Chenault,
yes.
There was the top floor of this building was a later addition. And then what they're saying is that what they're doing to that top floor is simply improving the quality of the glazing in the existing top floor?
No, they showed a hatch onto the roof.
No, I think that's a different one.
Are we talking about 10th Street? I'm sorry, I've moved on to 10th Street. Are you on another?
Yeah, let's all move together. You're on the next project, I know.
I'm sorry. I just happen to think of the 235 West 11th. There was.
Okay, we're back to, I'm sorry, had moved on to 10th Street. And
Yeah.
what are you saying?
Nobody mentioned the very top floor of the West 11th Street building. And I think that although I have no objection to what they're doing, that you might want to add that in your notes. That's all.
Okay, that we don't have any objection to it. That's part of what we approved.
No objection.
Okay.
I had one question about the 11th Street. I don't know if that was covered, but the front facade, are those windows, are they shutters and then windows behind them? Or I guess I'm not clear what's there now and what's being replaced.
Yeah, it was a little unclear, but
they're
but I could
simply
just-
extending the parlor floor windows to their historic proportions.
But it looks like from the photos that they're windows that swing out, but then there's also windows behind them.
They're casement windows. They call for new wood casement windows, and the rendering says they're black, not pink.
Okay,
So in
but they
case
would no
you're worried,
longer,
red.
but they wouldn't open anymore, right? I mean,
Oh, I think those
at
are
least-
storm windows inside, Eugene. I think that's what you're seeing
Oh,
in the
okay.
photograph. That's probably because these windows are so crappy that they built like secondary windows inside.
like that's how they're holding
Those
that air conditioner in place.
Yeah, I think those are
okay.
like that's just
Okay.
a guess, but that's what it looks like.
Okay, all right, yeah, I
Okay.
wasn't clear
But what they're
on here.
doing for the facade windows is all basically reproducing except extending.
Okay, but but the parlor, I mean, whatever floor that is above the
they're-
front door, they would no longer open, right?
They'd open
worse
in.
than the
Are they now? They would open in?
Parlor?
Okay.
Yeah, because they have a little balcony. Otherwise, you'd chop them off. If you push them out. They have a
Okay.
little railing, a Juliet
Yeah, that
railing.
guardrail. Okay.
Let's please move on. Was 10th Street finished before we moved back?
So no, you're too fast tonight for us. We're
Okay.
running after you.
I'm trying to keep up and make notes and not be too fast. We need to confirm that the visibility is okay. And therefore we need to confirm that if it is, this is a near neighbor of mine, and one has to take some trouble to even see the building down that alleyway. He was very dutiful in his detail, but it's the building next door that he claimed not to know who lives in that is much more visible. I hear no objection.
It's minimal.
You're
I don't know
welcome,
why they
Sarah.
couldn't get rid
Thank
of
you
it,
very much.
but-
Just a second. Thank you very much, Sarah, who's signing off with a thing.
Okay, so
the practical visibility of that is almost nil.
okay, so that is true. I agree with you, Chanel. I just wonder how much we're able to extend that kind of a rule or policy about the visibility on a landmark building. And it would seem like it would not be such a big deal, just like in a dormer or a story and a half house where the upper bedrooms have some slope ceiling in them. It doesn't make the room unusable. And just shaving that front corner On the front.
Oh, you're
facade-
back at the front. Sorry. Okay. I was
on the
talking
front
about the
facade,
back.
no objection to the back view, but on the front facade, just a little shaving of that edge of the roof would make it totally out of the viewpoint of the street.
You don't think that they presented adequate reason that it can't be not visible, which is the reason things are minimally visible. I mean, that's fine. Is a bevel, is that the right word? What
Yes.
is the shaving seems
Well,
not technical.
The bevel.
Well, in fact, they wouldn't have had to come to us.
That's right.
They could have spared themselves this, but they wanted to present their back door on the top.
Just an idea.
Okay. I think
agree
that's
with you,
easy
Brian.
to.
I would have done it.
Upper levels
Okay.
very often have a slightly sloped ceiling and yeah. No
Okay.
problem.
And it's a single family home. It's not a multiple dwelling or something, you know.
Greenwich Street. That's the 10th
What-
Street
this
is clear
So bizarre.
that it came to us.
Yeah.
Well,
Why? And I don't see
It-
how this change in this configuration is going to stop the crime in the building. By the way, I don't know why.
Street
Nothing.
number.
I just was overwhelmed by the difference in the Broadway application and the Greenwich Street application
Yeah.
is coming before this august body.
What's going on here?
Um,
They can. I mean,
oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to. And works in a hospital in Queens, and we had some conversation. This is what we arrived at, and it worked well. And thank you for the display of the slides.
So Chanel, if I could just comment, I don't like that little leaf sticking out. I don't understand it architecturally, design wise.
She explained that it's just the
But
flourish.
it's there. And I believe that having a house number on a piece of glass is better than what's there. So I would vote to approve it, even though I don't particularly like it.
I know what you mean.
yeah, but I mean, but she presented a slide with some sort of historic rendering where this thing was actually thought of and considered. Was that not going to be considered as part of this historic, I don't know, fabric at all?
The round portal?
It existed.
Yeah.
It's not historic. It existed at the time of designation.
Yeah, there was nothing historic about
Which
it.
is relatively recent for those blocks
Well,
over there.
hold on. What is the presentation? I mean, I'll go with whatever you guys think. But it just seems why is this before us?
Well, I don't know either, but Shadal, can I just say something that, frankly, this is a very undistinguished building. It snuck in the 80s. It never should have been built. It's
When I finally found it, I thought, what is the ugliest building in the
well, it's
block?
horrible. But, in my humble opinion, about the only interesting thing about it is that
Just the window.
Right,
people
right.
walk by, you say, look, what is that? It's kind of interesting.
It's
And
interesting.
the building is an atrocity. It's just an absolute eyesore.
Really?
So I think that I would vote to keep it. I just keep it the way it is. If they want to put numbers on it, I mean, I'm not.
Okay, we get your point, and we think, do you want to vote against the resolution?
The resolution.
There's
is to-
agreement now to for the proposal as it was made. Is this a comment or a vote against?
I'm against, if the proposal, I can't remember now, it's so late. If it's to remove it, I say we don't remove it, we leave it.
No, it's only to change from the bullseye window to
From the what?
Just to remove
is
the
to keep
window.
the flag and to change it from the bullseye window to writing a number on it.
No, I like to keep it the way it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you vote against the resolution then. I want to be
Yeah,
clear, it's a vote
correct,
against the
correct,
resolution,
correct.
not
Well,
an opinion. Wait,
Bo-
wait. Let Bo answer.
Yes,
Bo,
correct.
you voted against the resolution.
Yes.
Okay, Mustafa, what do you want to say?
Mo and Bo against.
Okay, is anyone else objecting to the resolution?
Sounds like an act.
Yeah, I know.
As
Yeah.
presented.
Bo and Mo 2024.
Okay,
Where's
anybody else?
Curly?
Okay, those who vote no, be quiet. And does anybody else vote against the resolution?
I also
No.
vote against.
What are you voting for or against it?
Against.
Okay, 3 against. Is everybody else for it? Okay. How many are we? I'll count up and whatever it is, but
5 to 4, I think.
But I
1, 2, 3. No, 3 to.
we're more. Okay.
Oh, Michael's here.
It passes
Where's
then.
Michael?
And
But I would like to just say that if they wanted to put the number of the building on that little detail, I
Inside.
welcome that. I think that would be a great sort of just compromise or just a thought.
Yeah, I agree. That's fine.
okay, then let's be clear. The resolution is to, and the proposal was to eliminate the bullseye window, have a plain glass, and write the number on it. If all of those who are not in favor of that are Bo and who?
Mo.
Eugene?
Mo and Eugene.
And Eugene.
So you should all, what I was saying was
Yourself.
what I was.
I just want to hear from the people opposed to the presentation that was made, which was the flag with the number on it. I have written that Bo objects, and Eugene objects.
Correct.
Mustafa, just be clear on whether you're opposed to the solution or in favor of it.
I am opposed to the solution, and what I was suggesting, was, and I don't know how you want to process this, was if they'd like to put the number of the building on that ship window, that circular window detail, keeping it as it is and putting the number of the building on there, I'm totally okay with that. But I don't know how you want to. That's like.
Is there any support for that opposite what they presented?
I don't.
Okay, then are you? Do you want to vote for or against the resolution?
Against. I'm against.
Okay, your amendment failed. Okay, there are 3 against, and I've noted who that is.
Okay.
Is there anything else that we need to discuss?
That's it.
If not, we're adjourned.
We are indeed.
Okay,
Thank you.
Wait,
I did want to say
everybody.
I was disappointed in the
Chanel.
more landmark oriented with their complaints.
Hey, Chanel, can I just make one thing? I don't know if
Yeah.
you want. One issue that came up a lot during the Broadway presentation was that we didn't have no one had enough time, nor did anyone really understand what the presentation really was today. Is there any way to put that into our notes or comments at all, saying like
it was on our website.
It was? Okay.
Yeah. And
I know, but Chanel, it said approved. So we're looking
that was the wildly confusing part of it.
And that's
they're
why I
correct.
looked at it and said it's already been approved. Wasn't
When I
clear to me
spoke to
that
Mr.
that was.
Yeah, I agree.
When I spoke to Mr. Sil, I want to answer that. When I spoke to Mr. Silverman today, who was the attorney for the Landmarks Commission, and is in fact the second most powerful person there, he explained what it is, which is the first time it was put forward.
It was what?
And there needs to be some mechanism that we're informed. What it is we're caught with this calendar thing that in order to get it in time to be heard by the commission at whenever its hearing is, and then to get it to the board so that there's a board meeting to send it there, we're relying on the applicant to give us the application. And clearly they don't want to say we got hauled before the judge and he said it was done wrong by the commission. So it was a real catch-22 situation with that.
Chanel, could you mention this in the resolution somehow? Because we did hear so much testimony from the neighboring building.
Yeah, I've noted that I have a lot of things to say that they said.
Thank you. That's
Is
the
there
best we can
anything
do.
else? Anything else before we adjourn?
Thank you, Chanel.
We're adjourned. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
How do I?
I want Bo
Bye.
and
Thank you.
Mo to know I have nothing against circles. Just saying. I want to go on the record as a friend of circles.
This is being recorded.
Thank you, Valerie.
And Eugene, I wanted Eugene to know that too. Okay.